Hi, it's Katrina. From cursed tombs to civilizations lost to time, the ground doesn't just hold dirt, it holds secrets that rewrite everything. I've rounded up some amazing archaeological discoveries into one massive countdown, so I hope you're wearing something comfortable because we are going digging.
The giant samurai. Legend goes that giant samurai warriors once roamed the land over 1,000 years ago. But these warriors are not just a part of Japanese myth. Archaeologists have discovered weapons of incredible power that may have belonged to real supersized samurai. What you're about to see defies logical explanation. There is a startling archaeological discovery that recently appeared across various social media platforms. You may have seen it yourself already. The remains of a legendary character known only as the Giant Samurai were found in a remote part of Japan. Archaeologists were looking for artifacts when they came across a burial site unlike anything that's ever been seen before. The burial site would have made the grave of Goliath look like a gopher hole. Japanese researchers supposedly found these skeletal remains of a real human behemoth, a giant who stood well over 15 feet tall. While the image of a 15-foot warrior clad in elephant-sized armor might seem like something straight out of a video game, there are actual historical artifacts that suggest the existence of abnormally large samurai. I'll admit that this discovery seems crazy. It seems very unlikely, and the images that have shown up in the social media posts look like AI. But here's the thing, I wouldn't bring you here just to tell you about an AI photo. Take a look at this sword. This is the Norimitsu Odachi. This isn't some mythical weapon, but a tangible piece of history housed in the Kibitsu Shrine in Okayama Prefecture. Forged in the 15th century, this Tachi sword measures a staggering 12 feet in length and weighs 32 pounds. To put that into perspective, that's longer than a standard doorway and heavier than a bowling ball. It's so massive that it requires 4 or 5 people to even move it. An ordinary human wielding a 12-foot-long sword in battle must have the blood of the gods in them. It's just not possible without incredible strength and rigorous training. Hercules might be able to wield the Norimitsu Odachi, but he was a demigod. An average samurai, even one with exceptional strength, would be hard-pressed to wield such a weapon effectively in combat. The sheer size and weight of the Norimitsu Odachi suggests that its intended user possessed extraordinary physical capabilities, far beyond what's considered typical at least. According to an ancient Japanese legend, swordmaster Amakuni Yasutsuna designed the first single-edged curved sword known as a tachi. This was during the Asuka period around 1,500 years ago. The Norimitsu Odachi is a tachi sword, just way bigger than normal. But where did it come from? That's a question not so easily answered. The truth behind this giant sword is unknown. Nobody even knows how it came to be at the Kibitsu Shrine. Some scholars say it was a ceremonial sword used in religious rituals. Or maybe it was a status symbol, or perhaps it really was wielded by a 15-foot-tall samurai warrior. To add to the intrigue, the Norimitsu Odachi isn't the only giant sword around. In 2023, Japanese archaeologists revealed another humongous blade that was found in a burial mound near the ancient city of Nara, dating back 1,600 years. The Nara sword isn't quite as big as the Norimitsu Odachi. It's only 7.5 feet long. It also isn't a tachi sword, but a dako sword. Archaeologists say the giant sword was buried in someone's grave to protect them against evil in the afterlife. That is a likely explanation, but I want to hear your opinion. Between these blades and the alleged giant suit of armor, it looks like there is more to ancient myths than just fairy tales. The truth behind Gladiator 2. Gladiator is back, finally. 24 years after the original movie with Russell Crowe, the sequel has finally hit the theaters. But where does history end and the movie magic begin? Before you grab your popcorn and settle in for some historical accuracy, be warned, Hollywood has taken a few liberties with this one. If you haven't seen the movie yet, you might want to skip ahead. I won't spoil the movie itself, but actual history might spoil the experience for you. From the get-go, the movie throws a curveball. It depicts a Roman invasion of Numidia in 200 AD. But guess what? Numidia was already an independent province by then. Oops! Gladiator 2 follows co-emperors Caracalla and Geta. who at the time of the film were only children. In the time the film is set, their father, Septimius Severus, was still ruling the Roman Empire. And while the movie gives a starring role to Lucilla, the daughter of Marcus Aurelius, she was actually executed decades earlier. Talk about a historical plot twist. But hey, who needs historical accuracy when you've got real-life Roman emperors who are more dramatic than any Hollywood script? Instead of nitpicking historical inaccuracies, let's check out the bizarre history of Caracalla and Gaeta. Caracalla and Gaeta were brothers, all right, but they were also a pair of seriously unhinged rulers. Caracalla, at the ripe old age of 10, was declared co-emperor by his father in 198. A decade later, Septimius made Caracalla's younger brother co-emperor too. Then, when Septimius died in 211, the brothers were allowed to rule in tandem. But can you guess how long a pair of Roman brothers held the throne together in peace and harmony? Well, Gaeta died in 211, so it was less than a year. Ancient Greek historians Herodian and Cassius Dio wrote a little about these brothers. They apparently had an intense sibling rivalry, but their rivalry was kept in check by their father, only while he was alive, of course. Once Septimius Severus was dead, the rivalry turned into an outright blood feud. By all accounts, Gaeta was a bit of an oddball. He left throwing themed banquets centered around letters of the alphabet. Think a feast with only foods that start with the letter F. Fish, figs, frogs, fava beans, you get the idea. But that's not too bad. Caracalla was on a whole other level of crazy. This guy once wrestled a lion and then declared himself the reincarnation of Hercules. He also made it a capital offense to pee anywhere near his statues. The actual death penalty. Think about all those poor Romans wandering home from a night out on the town who accidentally relieved themselves in the wrong spot and died for it. After Gaeta was killed at the hands of his brother, in front of their mother by the way, Caracalla went even crazier. When he invaded Persia, he ordered all royal tombs to be desecrated. He had his Roman soldiers scatter the bones of ancient kings like confetti. No wonder archaeologists have a tough time finding those ancient remains. If there is one historically accurate thing about Gladiator 2, it's that Caracalla and Gaeta loved the arena. Cassius Dio even wrote that Caracalla and Gaeta raced chariots in the arena and that Caracalla once broke his leg doing it. Would you have been able to rule ancient Rome with your siblings? Let me know in the comments. And now for a quick break because it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Aaron Mack and Triple Nines World for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for joining us and I hope you all have a great day. Egyptian litterbugs. The Egyptians may have been the worst litterbugs and polluters of the ancient world, at least when it comes to heavy metals. Researchers have discovered evidence of a forgotten harbor buried underneath the urban streets of the Cairo. It's revealing a whole new side of ancient Egypt. In 2019, archaeologists were digging deep into the earth less than a mile away from the Great Pyramid of Giza. The workers were excavating Khufu Harbor, established more than 4,600 years ago. But it wasn't by the water, it was right underneath modern city streets. For a port, 4,600 years is old. In fact, Khufu Harbor is the oldest known port in the world. It was a bustling hub back in the day, right around the time those magnificent pyramids were being built. But here's the twist. Researchers started digging around in the soil and found something unexpected: heavy metal contamination. Turns out the ancient Egyptians were quite the metal workers. They were churning out copper tools like blades, chisels, and drills, kind of like the ancient Egyptian version of an iPhone factory. A new study reports that the pollution levels were off the charts. Soil samples had significant levels of metal contamination. Khufu Harbor was situated on the edge of a branch of the Nile River, a branch that is currently gone. It's defunct, dried up, filled with sand, and paved over with a city. But in antiquity, it was home to a prosperous metalworking community. This discovery is a game changer. It shows us that Egypt was already a booming civilization long before the pyramids stole the show. They were smelting, crafting, and polluting like pros. Metal contamination was already present in the soil in 3265 BC. This means that almost 1,000 years before the Great Pyramid was built, Egypt was already home to a bustling industry. But here's the real head-scratcher. The pollution peaked during the construction of the later pyramids around 2500 BC and then mysteriously dropped off by 1000 BC. It's like Egypt hit the snooze button on their industrial revolution. What happened? Did they run out of resources? For whatever reason, Egypt lost steam, becoming less developed 3,000 years ago than it was 5,300 years ago. What do you think happened? A holy relic to change history. Archaeologists have discovered a holy artifact that could change history and unravel hundreds of years of secrets. In Austria in 2016, archaeologists unearthed a 1,500-year-old Christian treasure. This wasn't some random discovery. For years, archaeologist Gerald Grabherr had a hunch that something special was hidden atop a hill in Irschen. He and his team spent years digging, and just when they were about to give up, bam! They hit the jackpot. The hill was home to an ancient settlement established in the late part of the 3rd century during the reign of the Roman Empire. Inside the ruins of an ancient church, hidden beneath an altar, they found a secret marble shrine, and inside that shrine, the shattered pieces of an ivory box covered in intricate Christian artwork. This is one of the rarest Christian finds ever. Gerald said in a press release that there are only 40 ivory boxes like this one in the entire world. One like this hasn't been found in more than 100 years. These special boxes are known as pyxes. These pyxes were like sacred safes for precious relics. But here's the thing, they were so valuable that when churches were abandoned, people usually took them along. The reason so few have been found is that they are extremely valuable. For this box to have remained in the ruins for more than 1,000 years is incredible. So why was this one left behind? It suggests a sudden, dramatic event, maybe an attack or a natural disaster, something so devastating that the people had to flee for their lives, leaving their treasures behind. But the mystery deepens. The artwork on the pyx shows the ascension of Christ, but with a twist. Instead of the traditional image of Jesus rising to heaven, this one shows him riding a chariot pulled by horses towards a giant hand reaching down from the clouds. It's a scene never seen before in early Christian art. Christ is never shown as climbing into heaven in a chariot drawn by horses. This is completely new. As if finding a brand new Christian image wasn't enough, it's possible this ancient reliquary was used to hold fragments of the true cross. When scientists analyzed the reliquary, they found metal hinges and a couple of tiny fragments of wood. The wood doesn't appear to be part of the original box, meaning the wood may have been the artifact protected by the ivory case. Now, why would there be a reliquary holding tiny pieces of wood inside a hidden marble shrine underneath an altar? Because the fragments came from Christ's cross. The investigation is still ongoing, but if it's true, this could be the biggest Christian discovery in centuries. The creepy comb. How would you like to comb your hair with a comb made from a real human skull? If you lived during the Iron Age in Britain, you probably would have been just fine with it, according to this new discovery. Scientists with the Museum of London Archaeology found something ghoulish during the construction of a highway in Britain. The object was small, only 2 inches long, but one glance told archaeologists all they needed to know. This masterfully carved comb was made from a broken piece of a person's head. The highway was being built between Cambridge and Huntingdon when the discovery of the Bar Hill site interrupted everything. This place was popular 2,500 years ago, and archaeologists collected over 280,000 relics. Archaeologists salvaged as many artifacts as they could from the path of the highway before work had to resume. I've always wondered, where the heck do they keep all of those artifacts? Out of all of those thousands of objects, the Bar Hill comb proved to be the most fascinating. It's about 2 inches long with a dozen teeth. But here's the mystery. Scientists aren't even sure if it was ever used as a comb. It has a small hole drilled in the top, suggesting it might have been worn as a pendant. Talk about a gruesome accessory. Was it a comb or a necklace? Why would anyone want to wear someone's skull as an amulet? Why would anyone want to brush their hair with another person's brain cage? Now, before you get too freaked out, remember that cultures change over time. What seems strange to us today might have been perfectly normal 2,500 years ago. So why would someone wear a piece of human skull around their neck? Well, prehistory specialist Michael Marshall thinks it might have been a powerful symbol. Perhaps it belonged to a revered shaman, a wise elder, or even a fearsome warrior. By wearing the comb, people might have felt connected to that person's spirit or power. Of course, there's always the darker possibility. Maybe it was a trophy from a cannibalistic tribe. Okay, maybe not the best bedtime story. 2 new Stonehenges. The new discoveries keep on coming, and I can barely keep up. 2 new stone circles have been found in England and are changing what we know about the prehistoric landscape. 2 completely new stone circles from the Stone Age have archaeologists hyperventilating in excitement. Each of these new circles is at least 5,000 years old. And if archaeologists are correct, they are both enormous. Enormous enough that they could give Stonehenge a run for its money. These new monuments weren't even found by professional archaeologists. It was independent researcher Alan Endicott who stumbled on them. I say stumbled, but the truth is he was searching for ancient ruins. Alan is studying for a doctorate in archaeology at the University of Exeter. For a few decades, he has been scouring the area of Dartmoor and Devon for proof of Neolithic activity. Alan Endicott's hard work paid off because earlier this year, scientific techniques confirmed what might just be a discovery that changes history. Just a few weeks ago, a volunteer excavation team went to one of Alan's sites and started digging for clues. Alan said that one of the circles he found is similar in both size and construction methods to Stonehenge. Stonehenge is located about 100 miles northeast. It was also built at the same time as Alan's stone circles. It's the date and the distance that make the discovery so remarkable. It's the evidence we've all been waiting for to prove that there wasn't just one big stone circle in England 5,000 years ago. No, there were a bunch, and they were spread far and wide across the British Isles. The same civilization that built Stonehenge went on a stone circle building spree. Alan said he thinks that all 3 stone circles may have been built by the same people. Not the same people as in the same culture. The same people as in the same individuals. These master builders may have been part of a guild of stonemasons who helped construct monuments across England. They were like construction workers throwing up similar houses in a new neighborhood. Alan named this stone circle that's already been excavated Netherall, which let's all agree sounds very Middle Earth. The circle has about 20 standing stones left, but there could have originally been way more. The other circle has been dubbed Irishman's Wall and has only 6 stones left standing. Archaeologists have a lot more work to do, but I'll be here to tell you about every new thing they find. Cooking Mesopotamian style. I have something truly remarkable for you right now. You can now learn how to cook like an ancient Babylonian. It's the oldest cookbook in the world, with actual recipes perfected by the Babylonians 4,000 years ago. Your dinner table is about to get ancient. There is some argument over the official oldest cookbook ever. Some scholars insist that it's the De Re Coquinaria, compiled by the Romans 1,500 years ago. You can always cook like a Roman if you want to, but be aware that this ancient cookbook has recipes for making things like brain souffle. I don't know who you're serving your food to, but I can almost guarantee they won't appreciate brain souffle. Eons before the Romans came up with their bizarre recipes, the Babylonians were hard at work making up their own. A set of 4 cuneiform tablets were acquired from ruins in Mesopotamia in the 1930s. There isn't any information on exactly which city the cookbooks came from. They are now stored at Yale, part of their Babylonian collection in a Sturm Memorial Library. Along with the 4 cookbooks are another 45,000 clay tablets and artifacts recovered from a myriad of Mesopotamian ruins. Unfortunately, the recipes aren't all complete. In 2019, a team of international scholars specializing in culinary history tried to recreate recipes from the Babylonian cookbooks. They called it culinary archaeology. One of the tablets lists 25 recipes for stews and broths. 2 of the other books contain 10 or more recipes, although the tablets are broken and pieces are missing. Pia Sorensen at Harvard University said the recipes are not very informative. Each one is only about 4 lines long, with enough missing information to make cooking difficult. For example, one of the recipes calls for meat prepared with water, sprinkled with salt, mixed with barley cakes, onion, Persian shallot, and milk. That's the whole 4,000-year-old recipe. Surely there's more to it, but it's like trying to reconstruct a song's lyrics based only on the musical notes. I can tell you that some of the dishes wouldn't be unfamiliar on your kitchen table right now. One dish looks a little like chicken pot pie, only has chunks of other bird meat, dough, and a Babylonian-styled bechamel sauce. Another recipe calls for a blood broth, though it's unclear if that means human blood or animal blood. You can find some of the more detailed recipes online and go nuts at home in your kitchen. If you ever cook something from ancient Babylon, you have to let us know how it tasted. Are these real giant footprints? A pair of giant footprints were found outside the entrance to a temple near a small Syrian village. The temple bears a resemblance to the biblical Temple of Solomon. It's possible these giant footprints are an ancient reminder of a time when gods walked among us. Scientists have been trying to make sense of these footprints for years. They are engraved on a flat piece of stone outside the Ain Dara temple, northwest of Aleppo. The footprints are big enough that a normal set of human feet fit snugly at the very backs of the heels. You can fit a full human foot into the big toe. That's how enormous they are. Scientists first stumbled upon the ancient temple in 1955. A massive basalt lion statue was uncovered, which drew international attention. In the 1980s, the forgotten city was excavated, and that was when things got weird. In the Bible, it says the Temple of Solomon is built upon a huge artificial platform on the highest point of the city. Weirdly enough, the Ain Dara temple was also built on an artificial platform on the highest point of the city. The platform was guarded on every side by incredible statues of lions, sphinxes, and some unknown mystical creatures. All that remains of these statues now are the long claws of their feet. Their bodies have been broken by time. Could there have been two temples of Solomon? Or maybe it makes more sense if the Temple of Solomon was a copy. Maybe it was a recreation of an even older structure, the one in Syria. After all, the Ain Dara temple is about 300 years older than King Solomon from the Bible. Sadly, the Ain Dara temple is in very poor shape, and the original Temple of Solomon is destroyed, so nobody will ever be able to compare them properly. For now, we'll have to put that mystery to rest and focus on the footprints. The sheer scale of the footprints defies any known human proportions. There is one set of them as if they are the imprints of monstrously big giants' feet who stood at least 12 or 15 feet tall. Then, right in front of them is a single footprint, just one. What is the meaning of the second lonely print? It's kind of a third wheel. The solitary footprint isn't even in line with the other two. It's in the middle. Looking so out of place, it's honestly jarring. If you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments. Mainstream archaeologists claim the temple was built by the Hittites around 1300 BC. The Hittites controlled a large portion of the eastern Mediterranean until they fell to the Assyrians in the 8th century BC. The Hittites are a huge mystery. Some believe the Hittites were the last of the mythical god kings listed in the Sumerian king list. They allegedly lived for hundreds of years. The Hittites were possibly around before the flood, meaning they witnessed the fall of the Nephilim. The Hittites may have been the last living humans to have fantastic lifespans like in the Bible. If any of this is true, the giant footprints make a surprising amount of sense. The Hittites maybe carved them as reminders of the giants that once walked alongside normal humans. Civilization before the Maya. Drones and Google Earth have found something ancient in the jungles of Belize. This ancient thing has been traced back to the civilization that lived before the Maya. Long before the Maya civilization constructed their mighty temples and played their brutal ball games, a different culture altered the Yucatan Peninsula. But nobody knew how until now. Scientists at the University of New Hampshire employed drones and images from Google Earth to discover a series of canals from 4,000 years ago. The canals snaked through the dense jungle, their intricate patterns only visible from above. Once archaeologists zoomed in on them from afar, they strapped on their boots and embarked upon an adventure. The team of experts journeyed deep into the Crooked Tree Wildlife Sanctuary of Belize. There, they conducted some excavations. They actually dug up the forgotten canals, and in the process found a plethora of artifacts. Artifacts such as barbed spear points, which had likely been tied to sticks and used as fishing spears. 2,000 years before Christ and almost 3,000 years before the Maya reached their peak, these canals were dug by a nomadic people. This ancient, nameless society used them as fishing canals and holding ponds. This is a pretty ingenious way to get a stable food source. And it's not a bad way to spend a weekend morning either, standing at the edge of the canal in your loincloth catching fish. Freshwater species of fish, especially catfish, were funneled into the channel and then captured and eaten. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, but with pointy rocks and long sticks. The ancient culture used the canals for more than 1,000 years, and it's possible the Maya used them as well when they began to build farms and villages. Researcher Claire Ebert said it's amazing to see such massive modifications made to the landscape so early. Even before the Maya started building pyramids, humans were drastically changing the very earth. The pyramid is a secret octagon. How many sides does the Great Pyramid of Giza have? 4, right? Don't think too hard about it, just answer. The last surviving wonder of the ancient world is a huge square-based triangle with 4 sides. Only I'm obviously tricking you. A new study claims that the original pyramid has 8 sides, making it an octagonal pyramid. Archaeologists have known about this since at least the 1940s, and I guess they've been keeping it a secret. 85 years ago, British Egyptologist Flinders Petrie was looking at ancient documents from Egypt when he noticed a bizarre depiction of the Great Pyramid. The image showed the pyramid from the top down, and it clearly had a line down the middle of each of its main 4 sides. When looked at the right way, the pyramid is an 8-sided octagon. You just can't notice it now because it's ancient and weathered. You need special instruments to see how the pyramid is secretly an optical illusion. In 1975, pyramid researcher I.E.S. Edwards wrote that the pyramid's tacking blocks were believed to be sloped slightly inward towards the center of each main face. This resulted in a depression along the middle of each one, sort of like a drainage gutter, creating 8 distinct surfaces. When compared to other pyramids, they don't have the mark running down their bases. The only one with this bizarre, almost invisible feature is the Great Pyramid, built for Pharaoh Khufu 4,500 years ago. But why? Academic researcher Akio Kato recently agreed with everything noted by Petrie and Edwards. Kato said the concavity of the pyramid is so subtle that it cannot be seen from any position on the ground, only from the air. But that still doesn't answer the question of why. Maybe you can help me out here. Tell me any theories you might have in the comments. The mysteries of ancient American nomads. 4,000 years ago, a mysterious civilization built a village in the desert of Arizona. Few people know this place exists, and fewer know its secrets. The Clearwater site is located in Tucson, Arizona. It was recently excavated by researchers at the Rio Nuevo project. They dug deep down into the soil, identifying trace evidence of human activity from 2100 BC. I recently told you about Montezuma's castle on the channel in another video, which is a cliff-dwelling 800 years old. At Clearwater, the people predate those who built Montezuma's castle by more than 2,000 years. Montezuma's castle was built during the Middle Ages. The village of Clearwater was built in the Stone Age. But who built it? All archaeologists found were the remnants of some pit houses, which are considered some of the earliest forms of homes ever designed by humans. Were they stationary or nomadic? Most archaeologists believe the prehistoric people of North America were extremely nomadic, but these pit houses could break that mold. Very few examples exist of permanent or even semi-permanent villages in the United States of America from 4 millennia ago. Tasmanian tiger. Reports of Tasmanian tiger sightings are coming in by the thousands. Could this iconic predator still be lurking in the shadows of the wilderness? People on the island of Tasmania have been seeing a creature that isn't supposed to be alive. As recently as this year, this summer even, Australians armed with really bad cameras have captured grainy images of what they believe to be an extinct beast. The common name for the animal is the Tasmanian tiger, though you can also call it by its scientific name, the thylacine. Unlike the elusive Bigfoot, the Tasmanian tiger's existence was undeniable. You could visit them in zoos, and there are countless photographs that capture their unique features. One short clip, taken in the early 20th century, shows a thylacine pacing nervously in its enclosure, its striped fur shimmering in the sunlight. In the wild, the Tasmanian tiger roamed the forests of New Zealand as a marsupial apex predator unlike any other creature alive today. Although it was technically more wolf than tiger, it was also closely related to other marsupials like kangaroos, koala bears, wombats, and possums, just to name a few. Thylacine wasn't a mammal like your typical wolf, and it definitely wasn't like a tiger. It was a whopping 55 pounds, and it was a ferocious carnivore, which is precisely why farmers in Tasmania hunted it down. The same thing happened to the Tasmanian tiger that happened to the wolves in the American West during the early 1900s. Wolves preyed on sheep, so hunters were awarded bounties by the local government for presenting their carcasses. It was the same with Tasmanian tigers in Australia. By the middle of the 1930s, the population had dwindled to just one sad, lonely creature. There was a single tiger left, locked in a cage at Hobart's Beaumaris Zoo. The tiger died unceremoniously as the last member of its species in 1936. But all hope isn't lost for this amazing creature. 50 years without a confirmed sighting put the tiger on the extinct list in 1986. But there have been sightings since then. A lot of sightings. One of the men who has been searching tirelessly for proof of the Tasmanian tiger is Adrian Richardson. He's been on the hunt for the last 30 years. And I say hunt in the best way possible. Adrian is trying to confirm what many people are hoping, that the Tasmanian tiger is still alive. Adrian has even seen one for himself. Well, he actually heard one in the distance. According to Adrian, the incident occurred on January 28, 2017 at approximately 12:45 p.m. Adrian, a retired military man, was in the outback of Tasmania when he heard a sound. A howl pierced the otherwise silent air and made the hair on Adrian's neck stand on end. Just as the first howl faded, another one answered from the other side of the forested track. Adrian has been convinced ever since that he heard a pair of Tasmanian tigers calling out to one another. It's an extraordinary story, and one that isn't as unique as you might think. Sightings are reported by the thousands in Australia. And while nobody has managed to capture a clear and 100% convincing photo, the reports do seem to suggest that the Tasmanian tiger is alive. It may not have gone quietly into his extinction like everyone thought. The black leopard. Deep in the Kenyan wilderness, a phantom from the past has been awakened. For over a century, a creature of legend, a prowler of the night, had been thought long gone. But now, a motion-triggered camera has captured this elusive phantom alive and well. Everyone thought the majestic African black leopard had gone extinct, just like the Tasmanian tiger. British wildlife photographer Will Burrard-Lucas managed to get pictures of the cat in January 2019. He set up his motion cameras in the remote Laikipia Wilderness Camp. Will equipped them with specialized studio lighting and put them in the best possible location for possibly spotting a leopard. Then it was a waiting game. A long waiting game, with the cameras going up for weeks, then months. But in the end, it was absolutely worth the effort. The nocturnal black leopard walked right in front of the cameras, like a ghost. Will couldn't believe his luck. Like I said before, no one had seen a black leopard in nearly 100 years. Its sleek black coat seemed to blend seamlessly with the darkness, making it appear almost supernatural. Black leopards, also known as black panthers, carry a special gene mutation that's like the opposite of albinism. It's known as melanism and makes their coat completely black. But they are still leopards, so they do still have their spots. You can faintly see the cat's black spots in the nighttime infrared cameras used by Will. Although he didn't catch any video, each photo speaks 1,000 words. Researchers at San Diego Zoo, like Nicholas Pilford, have since set up remote video cameras nearby where the cat was spotted. They're hoping to capture a full video of a black leopard and to learn how many of these animals are still alive. Is the Goatman real? It's time to turn our attention to something a little less majestic and a little more demonic. If American legend is to be believed, there is a freakish creature hiding somewhere in the woods of Maryland. The creature is part goat, part man. You can just call it the Goatman. The Goatman sounds like the monster in a B-rated horror movie, but there might be more truth to this urban legend than many people are comfortable with. Stories of the Goatman supposedly emerged in the 1930s. In Prince George's County, people's pets started to either disappear or turn up eaten. After a string of unfortunate incidents involving dogs, locals became convinced that a vicious and hungry creature was on the loose. People started talking about a thing witnessed in the forest. This thing had the face of a human, but a body completely covered in hair. It also had hooves and looked like the mythical half-goat, half-human fauns from Greek mythology. This was the birth of the Goatman myth. There was even a rumor that the creature was living inside of a makeshift shelter near some abandoned trailer parks. Think what you want of the story, but it freaked people out. News started to circulate that the Goatman wasn't just killing pets. It was killing anything it could get its hands on. Then the story morphed into something even more fantastical. Someone came up with the idea that the Goatman was really a scientist named Dr. Stephen Fletcher, who worked at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. It was an experiment that went horribly wrong, transforming the scientist into a bizarre goat creature that started aggressively attacking people. That version of the story sounds a little too similar to the premise behind the movie The Fly. But hey, who knows what kinds of crazy experiments are being conducted at secret research centers across the United States? Maybe agricultural researchers really did create a hybrid monstrosity, one that still lives in the forests of Maryland to this day, subsisting on a diet of stolen pets. And now for a quick break, but first, it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Coco Week and Angela Schoenthal for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. The mega diggers of South America. Tree sloths are some of the cutest creatures you can see today, like little hug machines with their long hairy arms and long black claws. But you wouldn't want to hug an extinct giant ground sloth, also known as Megatherium. They were bigger, scarier, and probably a lot meaner than modern tree sloths. Our friendly sloths today can grow about 3 feet long and weigh roughly 11 pounds. Megatherium was 10 times as huge. Megatherium weighed a whopping 4 tons. Its body was 12 feet long and it had a thick tail. It was such a hulk of a creature that it walked on the sides of its feet for some weird reason. Maybe because its claws were 7 inches long and it couldn't walk on them. It carved out enormous tunnels tall enough for a grown man to stand up straight, no problem. During the Miocene epoch, an ancestor of the giant sloth, the Pro-Megatherium, was about the size of a rhinoceros. Megatherium evolved to become about the same size as an African elephant by the time it went extinct 8,000 years ago. That means that Megatherium could have gotten into an epic battle with a mammoth. Who do you think would have won that battle? Speaking of battles, ancient humans used to fight these enormous creatures too. In 2017, scientists found 100 fossilized tracks in the white sands of New Mexico. The tracks were from a human and a Megatherium, showing the two tangled in a fight to the death. Researchers are pretty sure that Megatherium was on the human menu before they went extinct. The earliest humans in South America just overlapped with this enormous creature until they went extinct around 12,000 years ago. Or did they? Hiding deep in the jungles of South America could be the last surviving tunnel diggers of the Ice Age. For centuries, tribes in the Amazon rainforest have witnessed huge beasts roaming through the jungle and talk of a huge creature that you can smell before you see it. It is big and hairy and not something you want to find in the dark. The people who live in the Amazon call it the mapinguari, a giant sloth-like creature over 7 feet tall with large, sharp claws. Drawings by those who claim to have seen the mapinguari look very similar to the Megatherium. Could they still be around in small numbers hiding underground? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. It's the Grunch. In the dark, swampy underbelly of New Orleans, a creature of legend lurks. known only as the Grunch Road Monster, or the Grunch for short. It sounds a little bit like the Grinch, but it isn't. The only things it has in common with the Grinch are that it's kind of green, unpleasant, and I wouldn't touch it with a 39.5-foot pole. According to local lore, the Grunch made its home along a remote stretch of shell road that came to be known as Grunch Road, appropriately named. Though the exact location of this ominous avenue has been lost to time, most accounts place it somewhere in the eastern part of New Orleans, in an area now known as the Little Woods. It was here, along the overgrown serpentine curves of Grunch Road, that the creature was said to lie in wait for hapless travelers foolish enough to venture into its domain. The Grunch was far from just another mindless predator. Those who encountered the beast and lived to tell the tale spoke of an intelligence lurking behind those fiery eyes, an almost human cunning that set it apart from any normal animal. The Grunch was also said to be able to open doors, use tools, and even mimic human speech in order to lure its victims to their doom. Once the Grunch had its prey in its sights, the true horror would begin. The Grunch was known to drain the blood of its victims through a single, almost surgical puncture wound. As you may already know, New Orleans was discovered by the French Mississippi Company in August of 1718. It was named after a French duke, Philip II, Duke of Orleans. The name of Louisiana's famous Party City comes from the name of a French city. But why in the world am I talking about history at a time like this? Don't worry, it's all connected. To make a long story short, New Orleans was handed over to the Spanish Empire in 1763. It remained controlled by the Spanish until 1801, when the French took it back. In 1803, Napoleon Bonaparte sold New Orleans to the United States of America, and this was known as the Louisiana Purchase. From the early part of the 19th century onward, New Orleans blossomed. There was a major population boom with a huge influx of European French and Creole French. There was also a large number of slaves sent to New Orleans to cultivate the large plantations growing outside the city. It was during this time of expansion that the first reports of the Grunch appeared. It's also known as the Vampire of Faubourg-Marigny. The horrific creature, a mix between a reptilian and a chupacabra, struck terror into the hearts of all those who saw it. It prowled the remote bogs and sticky swamps around New Orleans. Unlike the other animals I'll tell you about today, the Grunch may have been a voodoo creation. The terrifying beast may have been born using magic. New Orleans was one of the biggest port cities during the American slave trade. The port of New Orleans handled a massive quantity of goods coming and going from the U.S. The Mississippi River had never been this busy in all of its history. It was filled with so many steamboats, sailing ships, and flatboats that there was constant traffic. Voodoo magic thrived in this environment. One story claims that the famous voodoo queen Marie Laveau castrated a baby devil. When his severed boy parts hit the floor, they turned into a male and female Grunch. The Grunches bit the voodoo queen and ran off. They've been breeding in the swamps ever since. The Grunch supposedly has long horns, scaly skin, spiky quills on its back, and stands about 4 feet tall. Grunches can be a mix between a chupacabra, a reptile, a porcupine, and a monkey. It is said to howl like a wolf, scream like a banshee, or bellow like an ape when alarmed, as well as leave a strong stench. If you've ever seen a Grunch, or if you know any more about these bizarre voodoo creatures, be sure to let me know your experience in the comments. I would love to hear it. The golden mole. A golden mole, believed extinct for many years, has been found alive and well in South Africa. It was discovered swimming through sand dunes after a long and extensive search. When you think about extinct animals, De Winton's golden mole most likely isn't at the top of your list. After all, it is one of the weirder animals ever. Just look at this picture, thanks to J.P. LaRue. It looks like a sea cucumber that grew hair and a tiny mouse nose. The golden mole is blind. It was assumed extinct because nobody had seen it since 1937. And it swims through sand. How are you supposed to find a creature that swims through sand? Researchers did it by taking over 100 soil samples from the only place where the De Winton's golden mole has ever been sighted, Port Nolloth. The mole has one of the smallest ranges of any animal in the world, living in a small section of desert on South Africa's northwest coast. To track it down, scientists analyzed each of their soil samples for environmental DNA. Creatures leave behind things such as excretions, skin cells, and hair as they move through their environment, and they can be detected by scanning soil samples. The scientific team, led by conservation geneticist Samantha Meinhardt, picked up traces of the moles. Then they found fresh burrows thanks to some heavy rain. It looked like the mole was going to be found, and it was! Everyone is very excited about the rediscovery of this spectacular little animal. You might also like to know that the golden mole with its shiny iridescent coat isn't the only lost animal that's been discovered recently. The Search for Lost Species project was launched in 2017 by a group of conservation organizations. The aim of the project is to find 25 species that have been lost to science. As of 2023, 11 of the 25 species were found, and one of them was the golden mole. Another was the Attenborough's long-beaked echidna, also Wallace's giant bee, which is considered the largest bee on the planet. There was worry among scientists that the bee was extinct, but thankfully, not yet. The Ohio Grassman. What if Bigfoot has cousins? Let me introduce you to the Ohio Grassman, one of the weirdest Bigfoot variants ever. The Grassman is giant and hairy, just like Bigfoot, only is said to be significantly more aggressive. It's not above beating down a tourist with a camera. No wonder there are no photographs of the monster. The first known sighting of the hairy humanoid was in August of 1978. The most recent sighting was in June of 2017. It seems to mostly come out in the summertime. There is one big difference between the Grassman and Bigfoot that I should mention right away. The Grassman is a builder. It constructs small hut-like houses from tall grass. It makes primitive grass nests to live in, unlike Bigfoot. Nobody has ever found proof of Bigfoot building a house. The most notable sighting occurred in the small Ohio village of Minerva. It was the summer of 1978. Evelyn and Hal Clayton were at home while their grandchildren played outside in the gravel pit. For those of you who weren't kids in the 70s, everyone used to play in gravel pits. For some reason, they were in almost every neighborhood. The kids suddenly came inside screaming. They claimed that they had seen a big, hairy monster. When Evelyn and Hal went to investigate, assuming the kids had seen a wild animal, they encountered the Grassman. It was real. The couple claimed that they witnessed a horrible beast. It was completely covered in dark and matted hair. It was sitting in the gravel pit, picking through the trash. The Claytons were stunned. It looked like a big gorilla picking through a bunch of bananas, only way uglier. The Claytons thought it weighed at least 300 pounds. Their story gets even scarier. The Claytons ran away, terrified of the beast in the pit, but they kept encountering it afterward. The Grassman wouldn't leave them alone. On one occasion, the Claytons woke up and found the Grassman peering at them through their window. Hal ran to get his gun, but by the time he found it, the hairy thing was nowhere to be seen. Days before the gravel pit incident, the family's German Shepherd was found dead, its neck broken, presumably killed by the hairy beast. The Claytons were so disturbed that they alerted the police, who came to investigate. The cops found some strange footprints in the mud. They noted a disgusting smell that seemed to stain the air outside, but there was no sign of the creature itself. This was one of the most infamous humanoid cases in American history, but it was hardly the first. In the 1700s, the Native Americans living in the Ohio grasslands told tales of a strange race of giants. They were bipedal ape men, part human, part beast. The natives called them the wild ones of the woods. To keep them out of their villages, Native American tribes would leave offerings of food for the strange creatures. Perhaps the Grassman, Sasquatch, and Bigfoot are all members of the same species of forgotten primates. There are too many coincidences and too many sightings not to put at least some stock in the theory. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Bringing back the mammoth. Breaking news. Scientists are getting closer than you can possibly imagine to bringing back the woolly mammoth. It's time for the latest update on the de-extinction of the mammoth. It's fall 2024 right now, 21 years since scientists first reversed extinction. In 2003, scientists resurrected the Pyrenean ibex. It went horribly, horribly wrong, but also horribly right. The last member of its species, a female ibex named Celia, died in 2000. Right before she died, scientists had a good bit of forethought. They collected DNA from her ear and preserved it. 3 years later, they injected that DNA into a domesticated goat egg cell with its nucleus taken out. They essentially created a clone. This is some dark science, some borderline Frankenstein stuff. It was the first and only time that an extinct creature was revived. The experiment was a success, but only briefly. The clone was alive for a few minutes and then died due to a lung defect. Scientists managed to bring the creature back from extinction, but it wasn't healthy. Because of the moral situation, scientists haven't done it again. Nobody wants to be responsible for creating an animal who immediately suffers because of a birth defect. But in the 21 years since Celia's terrible rebirth, technology has advanced a lot. Technology has advanced so far that it's not even a question anymore whether scientists can bring animals back from extinction. Now scientists are mostly concerned with the morality of de-extinction. One company has already shed the morality of the question and is steamrolling ahead with plans to bring back 3 of the most iconic extinct species in the world. The company is called Colossal Biosciences, and I've mentioned them before on the channel. It seems like every few months they give an update on their plans. As of right now, their goal is to bring back the dodo bird, the woolly mammoth, and the Tasmanian tiger. The company claims that their ultimate goal beyond these 3 animals is to enrich global biodiversity. But just how close are they? Ben Lamb, the CEO of Colossal Biosciences, recently told Life Science exactly when they expect to have mammoths back in the world. Ben said the first mammoth calves will be born by 2028. Ben also said it's possible that they could produce other species before then, meaning we could be seeing a dodo bird in the next year or 2. Woolly mammoths were alive during the Pleistocene epoch, living in the Arctic regions until about 3,000 years ago. They had shaggy hair, long curved tusks, and fatty deposits to keep them healthy. Mammoths also took care of the Arctic grasslands by stomping the snow to suppress tree and shrub growth. And because they had so much waste, they dispersed nutrients across massive distances, which allowed other animals to thrive. Mammoths were at the top of the natural pyramid in the Ice Age tundra. They kept everything healthy, facilitating the very circle of life. Scientists suspect that by reintroducing mammoths, which they refer to as mega herbivores, into the Arctic, the ecosystem could be restored. In a way, mammoths might save the world. Making the Arctic ecosystem healthy again with mammoths might boost carbon storage and mitigate climate change. Going about it is a lot tougher than it sounds. Colossal Biosciences is currently planning to use Asian and African elephants as surrogates to grow mammoth calves. But this is a bit of an issue because Asian and African elephants are currently endangered. We are at a risk of losing the world's only surviving elephants. Vincent Lynch, an evolutionary biologist at the University of Buffalo, said each mammoth calf born is one regular elephant calf that isn't born. So the question is it a worthy cause to sacrifice our current elephants in an attempt to bring back extinct ones? Or should we wait until scientists figure out how to make artificial wombs? Vincent Lynch said one day there could be thousands of artificial uteruses in a warehouse, churning out genetically engineered mammoths. How do you feel about that? The Javan tiger. In 2019, conservationist Ripi Yanwar Fajar was out celebrating Indonesia's Independence Day when he and 4 friends encountered a gigantic cat. It was not the type of thing that most people in the Western world have happened to them on their Independence Day. Although, to be fair, it doesn't typically happen in West Java either. The cat encountered by Ripi and his friends was supposed to be extinct. After the brief encounter, in which thankfully nobody was eaten alive, Ripi reached out to a professional colleague. His colleague, Kali, worked for the National Research and Innovation Agency. Ripi claimed he saw a Javan tiger, a subspecies of tiger that went extinct in the 1980s. 10 days later, Kali investigated the site where Ripi had seen this striped cat. As he looked around, Kali found a single strand of hair that snagged on a fence. He also recorded some footprints, measured a few claw marks, and gathered all the data he could. Kali sent the hair sample to a conservation agency in West Java to have it tested. The results came back from the lab soon after, and Kali was shocked. The hair sample had 97.8% similarities to the Javan tiger. The scientists at the conservation agency compared the sample Kali sent them to a strand of hair from a specimen collected in 1930. Unfortunately, though, the hair also had 97.06% similarities with Sumatran tigers and 96.87% similarities with Bengal tigers. There is no way to confirm that the beast Rippy saw was the extinct Javan tiger, but it is the closest match. You may be wondering what the big difference is between all of these different tigers. They are all still big cats, yes, but each one is unique. In the case of the Javan tiger, it was one of 3 subspecies originally found in Indonesia. Only one species remains, the Sumatran tiger. In 2008, the Bali tiger was officially declared extinct. Java, an island roughly the size of Mississippi, is home to over 150 million people. The massive population boom in the modern age led to the extinction of the Bali and Javan tigers. Now there's only the Sumatran tiger, and it could go extinct at any moment. That's how few Sumatran tigers are left in the wild. There have been rumored sightings by locals over the years, with a big one going viral in 2017. But that one was debunked, as it turned out to be a Javan leopard and not a Javan tiger. Did humans and dinosaurs live at the same time? Imagine seeing a human riding on the back of a dinosaur. New evidence could show that humans and dinosaurs may have lived at the same time. Maybe they didn't ride dinos like horses, but they may have at least coexisted. Of course, I don't mean humans like us, but our very ancient ancestors. Scientists have always argued over the date of creation for placental mammals, meaning creatures like dogs, humans, and bats. It was always assumed that these types of animals weren't on Earth until after the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. It turns out scientists were wrong. Researchers at the University of Bristol think they found proof that our ancestors were alive at roughly the same time as dinosaurs. Lead researcher Emily Carlisle looked at thousands of fossils of placental mammals. Then they looked at the patterns of origination and extinction of different groups. By doing this, they were able to put a date on the first evolution of placental mammals. It began when dinosaurs were still alive. 3 major animal groups lived at the same time as dinosaurs: primates, which includes humans, lagomorpha, which includes rabbits, and the carnivora, which includes cats and dogs. Maybe humans, albeit primitive, really did live with dinosaurs, as several pieces of evidence suggest. Evidence like some strange fossilized footprints found in a Texas riverbed. Strange tracks were found along the Paluxy River near Glen Rose, not far from Fort Worth, Texas. When scientists first investigated the site, they called the prints man tracks and noted that they were mingled with indisputable dinosaur footprints. It looked like there were dinosaur prints marching right beside human prints, making it pretty clear that humans coexisted with dinosaurs. However, as reported in a New York Times article from 1986, mainstream scientists were quick to dismiss the human tracks as a nonsensical conspiracy. The scientists who analyzed the footprints claimed they were not human at all. Scientists said the footprints belonged to a mysterious type of dinosaur instead. Specialists claimed they found clear evidence of dinosaur toes in the alleged man tracks. Big fat extinct worms. Once declared by Aristotle to be the intestines of the Earth, earthworms have been recognized for centuries as essential to the health of our planet's soil. Let's talk about something long and slimy: the giant Palouse earthworm, a gigantic white worm that only lives in the Palouse prairie regions in Idaho and Washington state. The huge white worms were supposedly abundant in the 1800s, and then they vanished. They vanished so effectively that some scientists dismissed them as never having existed at all. Only they did exist. A couple years ago, scientists dug a few of them up again. Carl Umiker from the University of Idaho found one of these big fat white worms in the prairies. He did it using a tool called an electroshocker. It sends jolts of electricity into the soil, which coaxes the worms to the surface. You'd want to get out of the bathtub too if somebody dropped a toaster in it. It's hard to take in just how much land has been altered by agriculture and human activity. I'll try by putting it into a percentage for you. 99.99% of the prairie has been disturbed, eroded, or polluted by farming and human development. This is precisely why the giant Palouse earthworm disappeared. The ground used to be rich in these worms, which, by the way, grow to an astounding 3 feet in length. The one found by Carl Umaker was only about 8 inches long, meaning it may have been really young. 200 years ago, the soil could have been filled with ancient worms that had been left alone for centuries to grow into giants. Scientists don't know how long the worms will be around for, or if these are even the same giant white worms from 100 years ago. The giant eye. Imagine trekking through the ancient jungle and coming face to face with a giant, perfectly spherical eyeball staring back at you. In Costa Rica, excavations have revealed what looks exactly like a gigantic eyeball. It's honestly freaky. It looks like the eyeball of someone who stood more than 25 feet tall. Only this isn't a real wet and squishy eyeball. It is a huge stone sphere that is perfectly round, as if it's been made by modern technology. It just so happens to have a stain on one side that makes it look like a giant eye. I know what you might be thinking. Giant stone spheres are a dime a dozen, right? In geological terms, they are called concretions, and you can find them all over the world, on beaches, hidden in rocks, and even falling out of cliffs. But not this time. This sphere is not geological, but was carved by human hands more than 1,000 years ago. Scientists are struggling to understand how. Archaeologist Francisco Corrales with the National Museum of Costa Rica is an expert in these mysterious stone spheres. There are stone balls everywhere in the Diquis region of Costa Rica, dating back thousands of years. But why are there so many of them? Now known as the Diquis spheres, or the stone balls of Costa Rica, Francisco and his team are searching for answers. Back in the day when the Maya civilization was thriving and the Middle Ages were in full swing, in Costa Rica, the Boruca people ruled the land. Their tribe came from the area around the border of Panama long before Spanish conquistadors ever arrived in Central America. What's amazing about the gigantic eyeball rock is that it was made by people even older than the Boruca. Francisco Corrales said the 16 spheres they found in just one archaeological site were made between 300 and 1500 AD by the predecessors of the Boruca. This mystery civilization is so poorly understood that scientists don't even have a name for them. One thing is clear, these massive stone balls were important. They are all located in important settlements. Some formed patterns or alignments that had obviously been arranged with great purpose and care. Others were placed outside the entrance of a place of power, such as a chief's home or an important community center. The sheer amount of these sculptures in important places means that they were used as symbols of status or power with the Boruca culture, the Diquis culture, and the people who came before them. Researchers are amazed by the quality of the spheres and how the ancient people were able to make them so perfectly. There must have been some sort of advanced manufacturing process involved, since there are so many in all different sizes and they have a nice finish on the surface. Francisco said some of the spheres are 96% perfect, even after all this time. Even though nobody truly knows what they were used for, they were all built with perfection in mind. Some wild theories related to the stone balls of Costa Rica include that aliens made them. Of course, they are just too perfect to have been made by humans. Another theory links the spheres to the mythical lost city of Atlantis. Some proponents of this idea argue that the Diquis people were Atlanteans who escaped the sinking of the continent and brought their advanced technology to Central America. The spheres point to other megalithic sites, or once formed some sort of map or navigational device. Which theory do you like the most? How did this ancient group figure out how to carve such masterfully circular spheres? I mean, it's hard enough trying to draw a circle on a piece of paper, let alone try to carve a sphere in 3 dimensions. Have you ever tried it? This nameless culture did it using nothing but other rocks and primitive tools made from granite. Then they transported the spheres to where they wanted to leave them, which is impressive, seeing as some weigh up to 25 tons. That's a whole other level of mystery right there. Archaeologists and other researchers are excited about looking at the partially buried spheres found in this new site since they are extremely well preserved, and finally might reveal some answers about the mysterious stone balls of Costa Rica. The pyramid from before the flood. Forget Egypt. There is a megalithic site that suggests a civilization thrived thousands of years before the first pharaoh even donned a crown or a headpiece. Could it rewrite our understanding of history? Gunung Padang is the newest and most exciting mystery in the world of archaeology. It's believed to be the megalithic site of a great pyramid that stood before the biblical flood. But here's the surprise. The pyramid is nowhere near Egypt. It is all the way on the other side of the world in Indonesia. This supposed pyramid is about 19 miles from the modern city of Cianjur, located at the top of a vast hill dotted with patches of thick jungle foliage. There is no debating that the hillside is covered in what look like ruins. The issue is that scientists can't agree on what the ruins are, or even if the ruins were made by humans at all. It could be entirely natural, but it really doesn't look that way on the surface. From above, this looks like the largest megalithic site in Southeast Asia. Controversial carbon dating results have shown that construction may have started in 20,000 BC. You don't need a history degree to know that was way before the pyramids of Giza were built. 20,000 BC was way before Egypt was even around. The ruin is at a dizzying height of almost 3,000 feet above sea level. The shattered blocks of stone that may have been the pyramid's building blocks are scattered over a series of terraces. The terraces, while not identical, look a bit like the ones found at hillside ruins in Peru, like Machu Picchu. Each terrace is bordered by a retaining wall. There also happen to be 400 steps rising 312 feet up the hillside. No biggie, just 400 steps. The steps are what make the place look like they are leftover ruins from a civilization, not just by a random act of nature. It seems crazy that there would be steps, ruins, and terraces all in one place if they weren't put there on purpose. Now let's investigate the stones themselves, which some people say is the alleged debris of the destroyed pyramid. If you've ever seen pictures of the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, these stones are fairly similar. It looks like somebody hit the Giant's Causeway with a bomb, and all the hexagonal stones blew apart. Only at Gunung Padang, the stones are rectangular. There is more here than just a debris field. There are also gigantic walls that someone stacked all these stones up to make. At some point, people did come to this site and build something. Even if it was natural before, someone came along and built walls. I mean, take a look at this picture and let me know what you think. Does this prove it to you, or do you still want more? Like my friend who is a history professor said, if those walls are natural formations, I'm a three-toed sloth. And that's saying something. What archaeologists are desperate to figure out is when exactly the walls went up and what they were truly a part of. Was it a pyramid, a palace, a city, a fortress, maybe even a stargate? Local legends can always help. Historians from the area say the ruins once belonged to a palace built by a legendary ruler named King Siliwangi. He supposedly built his palace at the top of the hill in a single night. And that's kind of it. There are no other rumors or myths or stories about Gunung Padang online, at least that I could find. There are no ancient documents or manuscripts that even mention it, which is why a lot of researchers have trouble believing it is not natural. There is another very strange aspect that I haven't told you about yet. Researchers have found evidence that there are more ruins hidden underneath the hill. There appears to be a monumental structure beneath the surface. It could prove to be the foundation of the biggest pyramid on the planet. Based on georadar geomagnetic testing, there appears to be a series of gigantic chambers 49 feet deep into the hillside. Combining this information with the carbon dating tests that place Gunung Padang's construction at 22,000 years ago, this becomes a mystery big enough to change all of human history. So what do you think? Is this place a natural formation with caves, or perhaps a construction built by a civilization? Let me know in the comments. Artifacts from the cosmos. archaeologists have found some very remarkable artifacts that were made from otherworldly materials. These relics are out of this world. Really? 66 objects, mostly made out of gold, were unearthed in Spain in 1963. Collectively, the objects are known as the Treasure of Vienna. The treasures are significant for a handful of reasons. They are beautiful, rare, and a testament to the impressive skill of Bronze Age artisans. The goldsmiths living in Spain were incredible even in 1500 BC. That's how old the treasure is. Almost 3,500 years old. Scientists were able to date the gold components in the collection at least, but determining the age of the whole treasure trove proved to be a little trickier. There are two objects in the collection that don't quite fit. One of them is a hollow hemisphere, something that may have come from a sword hilt. The other object looks like a bracelet. That doesn't really seem that strange at first, but the weird thing about these two objects is that they were made of iron. But humans in Spain didn't start smelting iron until around 850 BC, 600 years later, during what we call the Iron Age, hence the difference between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. Researchers started wondering how iron objects were made more than 600 years earlier than they should have been. To solve the mystery, scientists conducted a full, meticulous analysis of the artifacts. Mass spectrometry revealed they were both made from meteoric iron. This means the iron came from space and humans didn't make this at all. So that solves that mystery, but it raises another question. How did these ancient people know that this material was special? What made them want to keep it and make items from it and keep it in the treasure trove? Let me know any theories that you have. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time! I want to give a huge thank you to Rob Robbo for the super thanks. It really means a lot. Be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family if you haven't already. Viking games. What secrets does a tiny piece of glass, no larger than a piece of chocolate, hold about one of the most infamous events in English history? Buried beneath the sands of Lindisfarne Island, a rare relic has been unearthed that links the island to the dawn of the Viking Age, revealing a surprising connection between violence and play. It links the island to the beginning of one of the most violent episodes in English history, the Viking invasion. The object in question is from a Viking board game. It's a small piece of blue and white glass made in the shape of a crown. There are little white glass droplets on top that form the ridges of the crown. Researchers think it's from the game or King's Table in English, which I think we'll go with that. It took scientists a long time to figure out how to play this ancient game. It hasn't been played by the masses for more than 300 years, but for centuries after King Harold landed in England in 800 AD, it was a popular pastime. I'm going to give you some details so that if you want, you can play it yourself with your friends. King's Table is a strategic board game designed to mimic a Viking raid. The Vikings couldn't get enough of raiding in real life, so they had a board game to keep raiding in their downtime. Gotta stay sharp. There are two different armies in the game. One player is equipped with a king and 12 defenders. The other player has 24 attackers. The attackers try to capture the king while the defenders protect the king and try to guide him safely to one of the board's corners. If the king reaches a corner of the board safely, that player wins. If the attackers manage to capture the king, that player is the winner. You should probably Google the instructions and then give it a try. It's a surprisingly simple game that is growing in popularity for the first time in centuries. In 2008, the first World Hennefettafel tournament was held in Shetland, the very place that was ransacked mercilessly by the Vikings for decades. That brings me to the other part of the discovery. The tiny board game piece was either dropped by a Viking raider or owned by a local who learned the game from a Viking. Lindisfarne Island is one of the most famous religious islands in the world, known for its illuminated gospels that were made on the island's original monastery in the 8th century. It's also known as the Holy Island of England. The Holy Island became the site of an unfortunate encounter in 793. It was the very first place the Vikings raided when they landed in Britain. The violent, bloody, and merciless attack on the island monastery initiated almost 300 years of subsequent destruction, which would shape Britain into what it is today. One of the greatest mysteries of the island is that nobody knows where the exact location of the first monastery is. There are ruins on the island now, but they are from a later priory. Excavations have revealed a cemetery and some random buildings, but archaeologists have never been able to find the original monastery. The gaming piece was pulled out of a trench from around the 9th century. Lead archaeologist David Petz said the game piece dates to around the time of the first raid. That's quite interesting because it shows that if a Viking didn't drop it during the raid, Norse culture had already infiltrated England. The monks on the island may have already known about the game and were playing it before they were assaulted by bloodthirsty berserkers. The boat that shouldn't exist. Say what you want, but the world is getting a little toasty, and the melting ice is revealing some lost pieces of history. Naryan Mar is a quiet town in Russia with a shocking secret. In June of 2020, intense global warming caused mass amounts of permafrost to recede in the area surrounding the town. In the newly thawed areas, locals hunted for treasure. In one case, they found something strange, a relic that didn't quite fit into official history. The townsfolk came across a large quantity of soil that clearly came from a different area. The soil was very black and appeared to be the result of a great mud flow. When experts arrived to analyze the soil, they determined it came from about 8,000 years ago along an ancient riverbed. Okay, not a big deal. Rivers change all the time and soil is moved around. It's been happening since the Earth was born. The weird part came when scientists discovered the remains of a small ship. Small as in about 30 feet long. The vessel's wooden parts were still preserved in the thickly black soil, with the iron nails sticking out of them. If people were navigating this river more than 8,000 years ago, whose boat is this? Who was making iron nails in the Stone Age? The discovery doesn't make any sense, unless perhaps another person besides Noah got lucky when the Great Flood covered the earth. Perhaps this boat belonged to a fisherman right before the waters came. How do you explain this ancient boat? Let me know in the comments. Caveman balls. Costa Rica isn't the only place with mysterious stone balls. When scientists began excavations on a site in northern Israel in 1960, they came across 600 stone balls. These balls weren't as big as the ones in Costa Rica, each one only around the size of an apple, but they were significantly older. The 600 spheres were made by primitive human beings 1.4 million years ago. They were found alongside strangely sophisticated stone tools, such as hand axes. Scientists don't know what to make of them. They don't seem to have served any specific purpose. What would a caveman need 600 rock spheres for? There was some speculation that the balls were debris from tool manufacturing, but that never really made sense. A new study has come up with a more exciting idea, one I think you're going to find very interesting. A team of scientists from the Computational Archaeology Lab in Israel developed an entirely new analysis software to measure angles on the surface of a rock fall. Pretty fun stuff, right? This software can look at the curvature, the center of mass, and recreate the process of how the rocks were made. This is an incredible mix of new technology and archaeological expertise, and it's being used to solve one of the greatest mysteries of the prehistoric world. Scientists are calling these things spheroids. Even though they were found in Israel in the hundreds, they have been discovered all over the globe. Prehistoric people from Israel to Timbuktu were making identical spheroids for no apparent reason, or at least no reason that we can understand. You might be asking, did humans really make these 1.4 million years ago? Are you sure you said that right? The answer is yes. Human beings did exist 1.4 million years ago. Specifically, the species Homo erectus, often referred to as upright man. The new software revealed that the orbs were made by chipping away the outer bits of stone in an attempt to get them perfectly circular. They definitely were not made by any natural process. It took a great deal of dexterity and skill, according to lead author Anton Mueller. It seems like the ancients were trying to perfect the spear. Most researchers think the orbs served no purpose whatsoever. They were only made because Homo erectus was curious and artistic. How do you like the sound of that? Scientists may have just confirmed that our ancient relatives were doing arts and crafts up to 2 million years ago. That's when the oldest spheroids have been dated from sites in Africa. Homo sapiens didn't even exist, and these creatures were carving juggling balls. But there has to be a reason, right? Maybe they were projectiles or ammunition for slingshots. Maybe they showed status and wealth, or had some sort of religious or spiritual significance. There must have been a deeper reason for making these. What do you think? Let me know which theory you like best in the comments. The shoe print from the dinosaur age. And now we have the mystery of the 200-million-year-old shoe print. Is it impossible, or is it evidence of a human civilization that existed when dinosaurs still ruled the earth? This shoe print was found in 1917 by an employee of the Nevada mining company named Albert E. Knapp. According to a letter that was allegedly written by Albert, dated January 15th of that same year, he found the fossil while walking down a hill. Albert picked it up, put it in his pocket, and examined it later when he got home. Albert had assumed he had found a dinosaur fossil, which would have been really exciting. But when he scrutinized the fossil later, he realized it was a shoe print. Not a full shoe print, only the heel. It looked exactly like the imprint of the heel of a shoe. Albert could see the hand stitching along the leather sole and the indent left by a human foot. He was too excited to keep the story to himself. You would be too if you found a fossilized human shoe. So Albert told everybody he could. A strange object found its way into the media and even appeared in a New York Times article in March of 1922. In the New York Times, the article said the shoe would fit nicely a boy of 10 or 12 years. The edges are as smooth as if freshly cut. The surprising part of it is what seems to be a double line of stitches. The report goes on to say that the leather was thick and appeared slightly beveled. The symmetry was perfectly maintained throughout the entire fossil. The fossil even showed hundreds of tiny holes by which the sole would have been sewed to the shoe. Everything about the artifact screamed authentic. In October of that same year, there was another article published in the American Weekly section of the New York Sunday American. Only some of the details had started to change. The October article said the fossil was found by someone named John T. Reed while prospecting in Nevada. Already, there were mix-ups with who found the fossil. Albert's story was like a brutal game of telephone. The New York Sunday American claimed the fossil was 5 million years old, when in reality it came from a belt of rock from 220 million years ago. Where is the fossil today? Sadly, nobody knows. It just sort of disappeared. That doesn't make a very good case for a fossil that's supposed to prove that humans had shoes on during the Triassic period. Researcher Glenn J. Kubin said the artifact likely isn't a fossil at all. It likely broke from an ironstone concretion, which had suffered from erosion. These kinds of concretions are known to show ovoid shapes and concentric banding. In essence, the fossil of the shoe might be nothing more than a convincing rock, like a cloud in the sky that looks like a dinosaur. Glenn thinks it was just a rock that happened to look like a shoe. What do you think? Did humans live alongside dinosaurs, or did Albert find a really confusing rock? The pole with a mysterious past. A mystery has been growing in an ancient Indian temple for the last 1,600 years. Scientists and archaeologists alike are struggling to make sense of the mystical iron pillar that defies scientific reason. Some say it is evidence of a prehistoric civilization. Others believe it is just an anomaly. Regardless of what anyone says, there is no disputing the facts. This ancient iron pillar refuses to rust even a little bit. It can be found in the world-famous Qutb funerary complex in Delhi. Some call it simply the Iron Pillar. Others call it the Ashoka Pillar. It is more than 21 feet tall and could be a lonely remnant of a time when extraterrestrials walked among us. In 1333, world traveler Ibn Batista wrote about his journey to Delhi. He said the awe-inspiring column was called the Haft Jush. meaning 7 metals. Nobody even talked to Mu what metal it was made out of or how long it had been standing in Delhi. All anyone knew was that the pillar refused to fall, never rusted, and has unknown origins. The mystery pillar didn't always stand in Delhi. It's been back and forth across India as different armies looted it during fearsome battles. One story says that when Sultan Iltutmish sacked the Hindu city of Madhya Pradesh in 1228, he stole the pillar and brought it to Delhi. Another story claims that the pillar was stolen by King Anangapala II in 1050 AD. Even if those tales are true, the pillar is still far older than both of those kings. The oldest inscription on its surface is written in an Indian language called Brahmi. The inscription mentions King Chandra. But there are 2 King Chandras. One is from around 400 AD and the other ruled in 350 BC. As you can tell by now, nothing about this iron pillar is written into stone. No one knows how old it is or where it came from. The main inscription on it simply says it was a banner pole for the god Vishnu. This is where things are going to get weird, as I'm sure you knew they eventually would. Vishnu is one of the most important gods in Hinduism. He is part of the Holy Trinity. Yes, the Holy Trinity does exist outside of Christianity. In Hinduism, the Holy Trinity consists of Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Vishnu is the protector of all things. He guards the realm of humans, fights demons, and maintains the cosmic harmony. Without him, everything would fall into disorder and chaos. This strange iron pillar could date to whenever Vishnu and his fellow alien gods arrived in this world. The metal that the pillar is made out of has seemingly impossible properties. A new study conducted by Professor Balaram Pani and his colleagues found that the metal has corrosion-resistant properties. It won't rust because of a protective film around it. The pillar's shield decreases its corrosion rate from an astonishing 0.395 millimeters to 0.040 millimeters per year. What kind of ancient technology is this? A pyramid mystery. Something very strange is happening at the pyramids in Egypt. A new structure was found in the beginning of 2024 under Giza that could be an entrance to something far stranger and deeper. The structure was discovered right next door to the pyramids in the middle of the Western Cemetery. The Western Cemetery was used for burying royal family members, people who were important but not important enough for their own pyramid. In the cemetery, there is one really weird area without a single above-ground structure. Curious, a team of international scientists from Egypt and Japan used electrical resistivity tomography to scan the area beneath the barren part of the cemetery. I don't really know what that is, but let's go with it. I'll try to explain it a little. Electrical currents are sent into the ground and resistance is measured to detect any remains along with ground-penetrating radar, a technique that sends radar into the ground and after it bounces back, maps the underlying structures. They found an anomaly at a depth of about 6.5 feet. The anomaly is an L-shaped structure at least 33 feet long. According to the team's readings, the structure is a highly resistive anomaly. That means it could be either an air void or a mix of sand and gravel. Excavations are currently underway to figure out what is hiding in the Western Cemetery. What do you think archaeologists will find? Let me know in the comments. The stone egg. The stone egg was discovered in 1872 while somebody was digging a hole in New England. I say somebody because I don't know the person's name. There was a construction project on the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee. One of the workers punched a hole in the earth to put a fence post down, and there was our mystery egg. It was buried a full 6 feet underground, the same depth as your typical corpse. I can't stress enough how mysterious this egg is. Its origins are way weirder than the giant stone eyes of Costa Rica or the weird spheroids of our primitive ancestors. This egg might be the weirdest relic on the planet. Amateur archaeologists have been speculating over its origin for decades. Professional archaeologists are so stumped they don't even like talking about it. I'll start with the weirdest part. The rock type isn't even from New Hampshire. It couldn't have possibly been made in the area. Secondly, there isn't another object like it in the United States. No other artifact from any Native American tribe from the tip of Alaska to the end of Patagonia made anything like this egg-shaped object. It's absolutely one of a kind. But what in the world is it? The stone egg is approximately 4 inches long, 2.5 inches thick, and weighs 18 ounces. It's as hard as solid granite and roughly the same size and shape as your standard goose egg. I know they don't sell goose eggs at most supermarkets, but I'm sure you can imagine a goose egg is bigger than a chicken egg. The stone is a type of quartzite, and the egg has holes drilled in both ends with different sized tools. This is remarkable because the drill holes are incredibly smooth. They were made with the kind of precision you only get from modern instruments. Even the Egyptians couldn't have drilled holes this perfect. I should mention the egg is also polished, literally as smooth as a real egg. Then there are the bizarre symbols that have been carved into the stone, using the same kind of precision as the drill holes and the polish. On one side is a human face, and all along its contours are strange astronomical symbols. On one side is an ear of corn, there's a moon, a few dots, a random spiral, and what look like arrows. The symbolism is lost on modern researchers. The face is also very confusing in that it doesn't have any specific features that can be traced back to a specific culture. It's just a generic face: eyes, nose, mouth, typical face stuff. And on the left of the face is what looks like a teepee. The symbolism is reminiscent of Native American cultures, but it doesn't match with artistic motifs that have been found in North America. It's almost as if whoever carved the egg was carving what they thought Native Americans would carve. And that leads us to the controversy and weirdness behind its discovery. The man who hired the workers to dig the fence posts, resulting in the discovery of the egg, was local businessman Seneca A. Ladd. Newspaper articles from the 19th century show that by 1885, Seneca had taken the egg into his possession. But he doesn't appear to have been a fraudster. He wasn't trying to make any money off the egg. When Seneca died in 1892, the egg was inherited by one of his daughters, Frances Ladd Coe. She donated the stone to the New Hampshire Historical Society in 1927. The family never directly benefited from the discovery of the relic. The controversy comes from the suggestions that have been made over the years. In 1872, the American naturalists suggested the egg was crafted to commemorate a peace treaty between two tribes. Later, it was hypothesized that the stone was used as an ancient tool. A tool for what? Nobody has any idea. In 1931, a letter was written to the New Hampshire Historical Society suggesting that the egg is actually a thunderstone, and that it has nothing to do with Native Americans. Thunderstones are mythical relics said to fall from the sky. Stories of thunderstones can be found primarily in Celtic mythology. The artifact could have come from a group of Celts who somehow made it to New Hampshire 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus. Or if not the Celts, then any other culture with legends of a thunder god, maybe the Vikings. The mystery of the egg endures to this day. The perfectly drilled holes and amazing craftsmanship suggests very advanced technology. Then again, maybe it was a Native American birthstone. Let me know what you think. The City of Giants in America. Imagine a cave of giants, a place where the mummified remains of behemoths sit in giant thrones deep beneath the earth. This sounds like something out of a movie, but it might be closer to home than you think. In the early 20th century, researchers found cavernous chambers in the Grand Canyon filled with the dead bodies of giants. It was a chance discovery. An explorer was rafting down the Colorado River when he spotted what looked like the entrance to a cavern high up on a sheer cliff. The explorer went to investigate, scaling the cliff to enter the tunnel. Inside, he found treasures that shouldn't even exist. Our explorer's name was G.E. Kincaid. But did this all actually even happen? Who was this man, and what treasures did he really find? We know about him because of an article published in the Arizona Gazette on April 5, 1909. The article claimed that Kincaid wasn't just a rafting enthusiast, he was also an archaeologist with the financial backing of the Smithsonian Institution. According to what the Arizona Gazette printed, Kincaid had stumbled upon a subterranean city. It was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers extending more than 2,000 feet underground. Inside were walls covered in copper weapons. Kincaid discovered tablets inscribed with what looked like Egyptian hieroglyphics. There were artifacts that appeared to be Buddhist in origin, with huge statues sitting cross-legged and holding a lotus flower in each hand. There was such a hodgepodge of artifacts that Kincaid couldn't pinpoint which culture was responsible for building the cave. Some of it was Egyptian and some of it was Asian. Most mysterious of all were the mummified bodies. They were huge, wrapped in dark linens, and none less than 9 feet tall. Do you have an explanation for the giants of the Grand Canyon? Do you think it's all a hoax, or could these be the real remains of an extinct civilization of oversized humanoids? Sadly, I don't have any additional information to back up this strange story. Kincaid may have never existed. The Gazette could have made the whole story up. Others think this is the result of a conspiracy. The Smithsonian Institution learned what Kincaid found and destroyed the artifacts in the cave. Since then, it's been rumored that the American government has turned the area of the Grand Canyon where the cave is into a forbidden zone where none may enter. What are they trying to hide? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Evil alien civilization found. A new study has suggested there are more alien civilizations lurking in our own galaxy than previously thought possible. These aliens are hostile and dangerous, and could prove to be the downfall of human civilization. No, this is not the synopsis for a new science fiction flick starring Will Smith. It's real research recently published in a scientific paper. The study author is doctoral student Alberto Caballero at the University of Vigo in Spain. Alberto began his study with the intention of answering one very specific question. What are the odds that human beings will come into contact with a hostile alien civilization? I'm sure it's a question we've all wondered. The Milky Way galaxy is huge, bigger than the human mind can comprehend. It stretches beyond the confines of our solar system to encapsulate millions of possibly habitable planets. Alberto believes there are 4 habitable planets in the Milky Way that could be harboring nefarious alien societies. Alberto said the aliens wouldn't mind invading planet Earth if given the opportunity. But how did he make this incredible conclusion? Should we be barricading our planet behind a giant force field? To answer his question, Alberto looked to human civilization. Uh-oh, you know where this is going. One of the figures he looked at was the number of invasions between 1915 and 2022. Did you know that 51 out of the 195 Earth nations launched an invasion during the last century? And did you know the US is at the top of the list with 14 total invasions? Alberto looked at this data and much more. His model revealed that the current potential of humans invading another planet is 0.028%. But that's only because humans don't have the right technological advancements. Alberto guessed, based on calculations using the Kardashev scale, that humans won't achieve interstellar travel for another 259 years, give or take a few years. For those who don't know, the Kardashev scale is used to categorize the advancement level of civilizations. Humans are at the very bottom of that scale, not very advanced at all. Alberto used the information he learned about human society to predict the behavior of alien societies. Then he looked at how many alien societies might be living on potentially habitable planets in the galaxy. All his research led to a number of 4 civilizations that would likely prove hostile if they learned of Earth's existence, and if they had the technology to get here. But don't worry, there's no invasion on the horizon that we know of. Alberto also noted in his research that it is 100 times more likely that humanity will be wiped out by a random asteroid impact. Who are these shackled skeletons? Around 80 skeletons were found buried in a mass grave in Greece. Believe me when I tell you, this is one of the most disturbing mass graves ever. The victims were shackled with primitive iron handcuffs and executed. But who were these people? Why were they trapped in shackles and mercilessly murdered? This is quite the mystery. The skeletons were initially found at the Phaleron Delta necropolis, which itself was found during the construction of a new opera house near downtown Athens. The skeletons were in disarray, some lying in a neat row with their shackled arms stretched above their heads. Others were piled one on top of the other, like they'd been dumped carelessly into a pit. Their arms and legs were twisted, their jaws hung open in soundless screams. Head of excavations, Stella Cryosoulaki, said they were all executed in the same manner. Most of them were very young and in fairly good health, suggesting they weren't slaves, sacrifice victims, or criminals. Perhaps they were part of a failed rebellion. The cemetery and its bodies date from between the 8th and 5th centuries BC. It was a time when Athens was in turmoil. The socialites battled one another for power. In 632 BC, an Olympic champion named Cylon staged a coup against a despised ruler known as the Tyrant of Megara. This coup was the modern equivalent of a football star leading a revolt against the government. It was an epic failure. Cylon, the great champion, escaped and fled, but his followers were slaughtered. These shackled skeletons may have been part of Cylon's botched coup. They may have been the rebel forces trying to take down tyranny. However, it's only a guess. There are more than 1,500 bodies in this cemetery, including adults who have been burned on pyres and infants buried in ceramic pots. This place has seen a lot. And now for number 10. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to give a huge thank you to Robert Klopstein and Stable Stone for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. Dark DNA. Scientists have been making some insane discoveries inside the human genetic code. They might be on the verge of understanding how to manipulate human DNA. Only, scientists are a little bit late to the party. It's believed the technology to change the genetic structure of humans has been around for thousands of years. Did you know that at ancient sites across the world, there are carvings showing the double helix motif of DNA? It's true, even if mainstream scientists dismiss it as a coincidence. For example, the Sumerian double helix snake god. His name is Ningishzida, a deity very few have ever heard of. Yet I have no doubt you have seen his symbol before. 6,000 years ago, Ningishzida's trademark symbol could be seen all across Mesopotamia, a staff with two snakes intertwined around it, looking exactly like the double helix of DNA. Some scientists think the symbol shows a pair of snakes copulating, but there is no arguing the fact that it is indeed a double helix. The same symbol has been used by other gods across the eons. In Greek myth, Hermes carried the exact same staff, which was called the caduceus. These days, the snakes twisted into a double helix around the staff is the symbol of health. It's on almost every paramedic's uniform across the world, although it has changed a little. They call it the Star of Life now, and they took away one of the snakes, leaving only a single serpent coiled around a pole. One of the more interesting theories involving the ancient symbol of the double helix involves extraterrestrial interlopers. It is believed in many circles that human beings got an evolutionary jumpstart thanks to aliens tinkering with our DNA. You can still believe in evolution and alien bioengineering. The theory states that evolution happened just like the scientists say it did. But then, when human beings were still slobbering buffoons, aliens tweaked our genetic code. They gave us a big boost in our intelligence. By changing the structure of our DNA, aliens pushed humans to a higher level of consciousness. Humans originally knew this after it happened and were aware of the incredible technology possessed by the aliens. But after the aliens left and some centuries went by, humans forgot. Only now are scientists starting to find evidence to support this outrageous hypothesis. In 2018, researchers identified a new tangled form of DNA that they've dubbed the eye motif. Around that same time, scientists found a bombshell that changed history in the scientific community. They identified a mysterious sequence of DNA known as dark DNA. Just like dark matter in the universe, scientists can't make sense of it. And just like ordinary dark matter, dark DNA seems to make up the majority of all our DNA. There are all kinds of crazy DNA discoveries being made right now. A recent study of almost 12,000 women in the UK who were at a high risk of depression showed that their mitochondrial DNA had been functionally changed. This was because of their emotional well-being. It's becoming clear that positive thoughts and overcoming stress can literally alter a human's genetic code. If humans can change their DNA with nothing but positive energy, did the ancients know this? Did they practice it? Did the people of places like ancient Egypt have powers of the mind that modern humans can only dream of? What are your thoughts on this? A supernova in the Himalayas. On a stone in the Himalayas, archaeologists found what they think is the oldest picture of a supernova. In the territory of Kashmir, somebody witnessed an explosive event in space almost 6,000 years ago. They then recorded what they saw by carving it into a rock. But there is more to this carving than meets the eye. It is no ordinary petroglyph. It shows two bright objects with the figures of some humans and animals underneath. According to astrophysicist Mayank Vaia, who studied the stone, the image is of a supernova that took place in 3600 BC. It was biblically humongous. That means seriously big. You've likely never seen a supernova with your naked eyes. If you have, you absolutely must tell us about it in the comments. 5,600 years ago, the supernova seen from the Himalayas would have been as bright as the moon, if not brighter. The exploding star would have lit up the night sky like fireworks. The proof isn't just carved in stone. Mayank Vaia found proof of it in the astronomical records. Supernova HB9 was visible from the surface of Earth at the exact same time someone in the Himalayas carved this incredible image in stone. What makes things extra exciting is that the person who drew the supernova drew it in the right spot. What I mean is that the drawing is a sky map. It gives the precise location of familiar constellations. Mayank superimposed the ancient map onto the same region of sky where HB9 went supernova. Sure enough, they matched. The people in the drawing aren't people, they're constellations. The hunter matches perfectly with the constellation Orion, while the stag that looks like it's being hunted actually fits with the constellation Taurus. People in the snowy region of the Himalayas clearly had a better understanding of the cosmos almost 6,000 years ago than scientists realized. This discovery proves that even before civilization started, people were mapping the stars. Pandemics of ancient Africa. Pandemics change history. Nobody knows that better than everyone who survived 2020. But COVID-19 wasn't the first time that society changed due to rampaging sickness. There was the Black Death in the 14th century, the Spanish flu hardly more than 100 years ago in 1918. Amazing, isn't it? How fast humans forget. Archaeologists have been hard at work studying ancient diseases to see how they changed history. They have even learned about disease outbreaks without even meaning to. For example, archaeologists discovered a series of abandoned settlements in Acrocroa in Ghana from the 14th century. A pandemic had clearly struck the area, forcing people to abandon their homes and flee. They also found a staggering number of infant burial sites in the Limpopo Valley of South Africa from around 1000 AD. A pandemic also hit the area, causing a steep spike in infant mortality. The most interesting plague-stricken place is K2, an ancient urban settlement located in South Africa, part of the historic Mapungubwe World Heritage Site. In the year 1000, the people of K2 prospered. They raised cattle, grew crops, and practiced metallurgy. They were rapidly developing a complex economy that connected to international trading networks. Everything was going great, and then suddenly things went horribly wrong. The mortality rate of infants hit 5%, which is crazy high. Then the site was suddenly abandoned. It's been a long-standing mystery in the archaeological community, but maybe it's not that big of a mystery after all. Scientists think the settlement of K2 was likely hit by a pandemic. The truth of the Mayan collapse. While I'm on the topic of catastrophes, let's take a trip to the world of the ancient Maya. Human feces, as gross as it sounds, may have just revealed the secret of why the Mayan Empire collapsed. Scientists have identified 4 distinct periods of population size in the kingdom of the Maya. It's believed each period coincided with a particularly dry or especially wet era in history. When it was dry and there were fewer crops, populations plummeted. When it was wet and everyone had food to eat, populations spiked. When I say it like that, it seems totally reasonable. But what does it have to do with human waste? Scientists from McGill University in Canada used flattened piles of human waste at the ancient city of Itzan in Guatemala to make some startling discoveries. They analyzed organic molecules in human waste called fecal stanols. These molecules can be found preserved in sediment layers at the bottoms of lakes and rivers near where humans lived. You're welcome for that little tidbit. By analyzing the concentration of the organic molecules, scientists can see how many people lived during a certain time. A larger concentration means more people were flushing their waste into the river. It's an interesting technique that has already shown Itzan is 650 years older than the archaeological evidence showed. Even when the stones of pyramids have decayed and the cities have been swallowed by the jungle, the organic molecules from human feces remain buried at the bottom of the river. They can reveal some surprising information, like at Itzan, where the fecal record shows the major population spike in 1697. The spike coincides with the Spanish attack on one of the last surviving Maya strongholds. It indicates a huge surge in war refugees arriving in Itzan from an area devastated by the conquerors. This is amazing because historians haven't documented this movement of war refugees. It's an unknown piece of history revealed only due to tiny poo particles. I know it's gross and not something we typically talk about, but this is weird and interesting enough that I thought you'd like to know. The population fluctuations correlating to dry periods seems to say the Maya collapsed due to climate change. The lost city of Tuam discovered. Ruins have been discovered in the dry wasteland of the United Arab Emirates that could belong to a legendary lost city. One you've likely never heard of before. This just happened in 2024. You're going to be blown away by the city of Tuam. Archaeologists were excavating on Al Siniya Island when they made the breakthrough. Al Siniya is part of a small island group near the Khor al-Bidiyah Peninsula. At first, archaeologists thought they were dealing with a small pearl fishing settlement. They found a Christian monastery and evidence of a modest village. Then they found more buildings and more buildings. And soon the small village turned into an urban city. Experts think they accidentally found the ruins of Tuam, a metropolis only known about in ancient Arab texts. According to those old texts, Tuam grew insanely wealthy from the pearl fishing industry. Thanks to its position right at the edge of the Gulf Coast, it had an easy time trading in pearls and precious gems. Merchant vessels could quickly stop in the harbor to buy goods. Then came an irreversible disaster. A plague swept through the prospering city, leaving it desolate and abandoned. It was one of the worst plagues that ever struck humanity. Today, historians call it the Plague of Justinian. It swept across Europe and the Near East in the middle of the 6th century AD. This was around the time that Tuam was abandoned. It's been estimated the plague killed up to 100 million people. In 2013, researchers confirmed the plague was caused by Yersinia pestis, the exact same bacteria responsible for the Black Death in the 14th century. Only this was an ancient strain, which is believed to have come from the mountains along the border of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. The plague of Justinian hit in 541, with initial reports coming in from the port of Pelusium in Egypt. Then it reached the shining city of Constantinople thanks to infected rats on grain ships from Egypt. Egypt had a serious rat problem. A lot of ancient civilizations relied on Egypt's grain to feed their populations. Massive government granaries gave rats a near-endless supply of food. The almost endless supply of food made an almost endless supply of rats. And fleas, too. Soon after the plague arrived in Constantinople, around 10,000 people per day were dying in the city. And they didn't have the technology to get the bodies out of the streets, leading to some majorly disturbing scenes. Archaeological evidence in the ruins of the city in the United Arab Emirates show it was indeed ravaged by a mysterious sickness. Archaeologists found mass graves containing the skeletons of people who died young and without any sign of physical trauma. It's still too early to 100% confirm the ruins as those of Tuam, but it is highly probable. Professor Tim Power from the UAE University said researchers haven't found any inscriptions bearing the town's name. Still, all evidence points to this being a lost city, rediscovered. These people survived Pompeii. It was always assumed that when Mount Vesuvius erupted in the year 79 AD, everyone in the city of Pompeii was destroyed. But it turns out some people may have survived. The explosive eruption was devastating on a level most people can hardly imagine. 3 cubic miles of debris exploded from the mountain's mouth like a bomb went off. Ash and rock fell to earth, burying 2 ancient cities. One was Pompeii, and the other was Herculaneum. Boom, end of story. The cities were wiped out. Everyone in them fell victim to the intense heat and suffocating debris. People became petrified as statues underneath a thick layer of pumice. Hold on though, because this wasn't the end of the story. Recent research has totally changed the narrative. It's a surprisingly positive twist on an ancient horror story. Mount Vesuvius wasn't just about annihilation. Some people escaped and went on to rebuild their lives. Pompeii was a very wealthy city on the coast of Italy with about 30,000 people living in it. A few miles away was Herculaneum, with a more modest population of about 5,000. Herculaneum also had a small fishing fleet and some marble workshops. Both their economies were booming. Wealthy Romans often retired to the countryside around Mount Vesuvius, settling in either Pompeii or Herculaneum. Over the last 200-odd years of research, archaeologists have noticed something critical missing from their excavations. They've only discovered a tiny fraction of the total populations of the 2 ruined cities. In Pompeii, archaeologists should have found 30,000 bodies, but they haven't. They have found signs of panic and fleeing. Archaeologists have discovered carts and horses missing from stables. It's the equivalent of the family sedan gone from the garage with the garage door still wide open. They have found ships missing from docks. They have found strong boxes completely empty, evidence that people cleaned out their savings and ran for the hills or for the sea. Things are starting to look a little brighter for the ancient people of Pompeii. It seems a lot, maybe even most, survived the eruption. A team of researchers headed by Stephen L. Tuck at Miami University spent the last 8 years scouring tens of thousands of ancient Roman inscriptions. They looked at writing on tombstones and walls across more than a dozen cities. The inscriptions revealed evidence of over 200 survivors of Pompeii in 12 different cities. What this means is that the people of Pompeii weren't instantly destroyed by the volcano. Many of them fled and started new lives in different cities. Like the Caltilius family, who resettled in the major port city of Ostia. Stephen learned of the family because they founded a temple to the Egyptian god Serapis in Ostia. They were able to leave a written history of their family behind. The records show that after they fled Pompeii, some members of the Caltilius family married into the Munatiuses family, who had also escaped Pompeii. The mystery metal of orichalcum. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato was the first person to mention Atlantis. He was the brains behind the legend, which lives on to this day. But Plato also talked about other things that are still mysterious in our modern world. For example, a valuable metal called orichalcum. Plato described orichalcum as a coveted substance whose value was second only to gold. Unsurprisingly, Plato also linked orichalcum to the city of Atlantis. And there are other texts that back up what Plato was saying. The ancient world is rife with mentions of orichalcum. Even with the historical evidence, some scientists don't think it was real. The ancients described orichalcum as a magical metal, one that was mined from some secret mountains. Modern scholars think they were just talking about boring old brass. Well, the joke is on you, modern scholars. In 2015, marine archaeologists discovered an ancient shipwreck carrying actual ingots of orichalcum, 47 ingots to be exact. Then, 2 years later, 39 additional bars of the mystery metal were found on the seafloor. When scientists analyzed the ingots, they were shocked to see they had been made roughly 2,600 years ago. Orichalcum was real, but what made it so magical? It was very similar to gold. When done right, orichalcum could be made almost indistinguishable from gold. The Greeks knew it, which was why the metal had a mythical status with them. Then when the Romans came along, they realized the metal's potential. By 45 BC, it's believed the Romans started using orichalcum to mint coins. An issue soon came to light, one you most likely already saw coming. Gold was so close to orichalcum that the two metals were easy to swap without anyone noticing. It was a forger's paradise. One ancient rumor is that Julius Caesar stole 3,000 pounds of pure gold from the Roman capital. He switched it out with orichalcum. Emperor Vitellius did the same thing, only he robbed his own temples, exchanging real gold for orichalcum. What makes things extra mysterious is that modern scientists haven't figured out how to recreate the formula that made orichalcum indistinguishable from gold. The ingots found in 2015 are said to be orichalcum, yes, that's true. But they are a different type, not the same mythical orichalcum that Plato talked about. These ingots in the shipwreck were made of copper and zinc, whereas if Plato is to be believed, there was a more pure version used by the Atlanteans themselves. An indecipherable prehistoric message. Deep in the quiet and peaceful hills of Scotland are thousands of ancient stones pockmarked with glyphs. These ancient stones and their mysterious symbols look strangely similar to something you can see for yourself in North Carolina. It's true, you can see it with your own eyes. Symbols used by prehistoric people in Scotland were also used by Native Americans in Appalachia. Nobody has ever been able to decipher the symbols. It's been suggested they form a cryptic message from a forgotten time, a message so complex and shocking that modern scholars are hopeless to crack it. The best piece of proof is the Judah Kula Rock, an archaeological site in Jackson County. The rock is more of a stone, technically a massive boulder of soapstone. It's covered in entrancing petroglyphs. The symbols are jammed up against one another, showing what look like stick figure aliens with claws and 7 fingers on their hands. Chunks of soapstone have been used by human beings for countless millennia. The soft rock makes an excellent easel to carve on. Even the ancient Egyptians used soapstone for making things like scarab beetle amulets. There is one thing that makes Judah Kula Rock unique, though. The soapstone boulder and the surrounding area were sacred to the Cherokee. According to Cherokee tradition, Judah Kula was the name of a giant who had 7 fingers, hence the weird stick figures on the stone. The Cherokee said this stone was a boundary line. It marked the border between the lands of the Cherokee and the giant's territory. The Cherokee claimed the giant had superhuman strength and could even teleport. This mystery is only half told. On the other side of the Atlantic Ocean in Scotland, there are many pieces of prehistoric stonework. There are dolmen burial structures, henges, and menhirs. Thousands of stones can be seen across Scotland with identical engravings as what you see on Judah Kula Rock. How is this possible? And if there are thousands in Scotland, why are there so few in America? There have been many guesses to explain this incredible coincidence. Some believe the ancient Picts of Scotland sailed across the sea and settled in North Carolina. It's a fun idea, but likely not correct. Most of the pictograms are far older than the Pictish culture. The rock art in Scotland dates back up to 5,000 years. That would mean the Druids would have had to come across the Atlantic, the same supposedly primitive humans who built places like Stonehenge and Skara Brae. How do you explain the similarities between Scotland's ancient art and the prehistoric art in Appalachia? Let me know in the comments if you have any theories about this. The real bottomless pit. There is supposedly a bottomless pit near Ellensburg in Washington state. I say supposedly because no credible evidence has ever shown that the hole exists. It's a wild story that takes us to 1997. On February 21st of that year, Mel Waters appeared as a guest on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Mel claimed he owned a property deep in the rural wilderness of Kittitas County, and on his property was a hole without a bottom. A bottomless pit should be physically impossible, but what if it isn't? According to Mel, he used more than 80,000 feet of fishing line in a desperate attempt to reach the bottom of the hole, but he never got to the bottom. Everything he threw into the hole vanished. It seems like a serial killer's dream come true. No more evidence. When word of his magic bottomless pit spread, US federal agents allegedly seized the land. Mel was forced to relocate to Australia. Mel appeared on Coast to Coast AM again in 2000 and 2002. Others came forward claiming that they too had seen Mel's pit with their own eyes. Like Gerald Osborne, who told reporters he had seen it several times during an interview in 2012. Gerald said ever since the US government took over Mel's property, they have maintained a secret base next to the bottomless pit. The whole county has supposedly become a hotbed for alien activity. It's as if they are drawn to the pit, or whatever magic makes it bottomless. It's a cool story, right? Except that in 2002, Gerald Osborne became his own worst enemy. He led a group of 30 people on an expedition to track down Mel's hole, and they never found it. Local news reporters investigated and found no public records of Mel Waters ever even living in Kittitas County. Jack Powell, a geologist with the State Department of Natural Resources, called the hole geologically impossible. Jack said an ordinary mine shaft was likely the inspiration for the stories, but an 80,000-foot pit of nothingness would collapse into itself. The real Sumerian Dracula. Before Count Dracula, before the fanged aristocrats of Gothic fiction, before Satan himself, there were the vampires of Sumer. They were the OG soul-draining spirits that kickstarted the whole undead nightmare. You won't believe how vampires really got their start. Did you know that Scotland originally had dancing vampires? It's true. They were known as the Bavan Sith. But trust me, you would not want to tango with these horrifying bloodsuckers. The dancing vamps of the Scottish Highlands were seen as evil fairies. Locals called them the White Women of the Highlands. Unlike your classic vampire, shrouded in a dark cape and whispering in a vague Eastern European accent, the Bavan Sith were always beautiful young women. They appeared to their victims dressed in long green gowns and oozing sensuality. It was really easy for them to seduce male victims and suck their blood. If the men had taken a closer look, they would have noticed the deer hooves where their seductress's feet should have been. In Scotland, the original vampires were half women, half deer creatures. They lured unsuspecting hunters, travelers, and pilgrims into their clutches. They also didn't have fangs. Instead, they used their razor-sharp fingernails to slice open their victims and drain them. Instead of hypnotic stares, they seduced their prey through dance, hence the whole dancing vampire thing. It was less, I want to suck your blood, and more, may I have this dance and also your life force? And instead of turning into bats, Bavan Sith shapeshifted into wolves, ravens, and crows. However, they weren't as powerful in animal form since they couldn't use their beauty to deceive people. The big similarity between the gorgeous lady vampires of Scottish myth and the big baddie Dracula is that they both needed to rest in their coffin come dawn. The dancing vampires were also really easy to defeat. A simple piece of iron, like a horseshoe, placed on their grave could keep them at bay. A simple piece of iron? That's all it took? It's funny how these terrifying creatures often have such specific vulnerabilities. But long before Scotland's vampire menace, there was the Sumerian monster known as Edimu. Scholars agree that Edimu was the very first vampire ever. The Edimu were part vampire, part ghost. The Sumerians believed them to be spirits of the dead who had been cursed or denied proper burial rites. If you didn't get a proper send-off, your soul would rise as one of these shadowy creatures, and when you rose hungry. The Edimu were known for passing through walls, possessing people, and causing plagues. They were bringing pestilence to the humans thousands of years before Nosferatu. The first tales of Sumerian vampires could be upwards of 5,000 years old. Perhaps most terrifyingly, the Edimu drained their victims' energy while they slept. This is a theme that would later appear in vampire folklore across the world, from the Hindu monster Preta to the Chinese energy stealer Jiangxi. It was an energy vampire, not a blood-sucking vampire. The Sumerians started the idea that neglecting religious duties or defying moral codes could turn you into a monster. Whether it was the heretics of medieval Europe, the wicked souls of Babylon, or the men who danced with the Bavan Sith, the message was the same. If you stray from the righteous path, you risk losing your soul. What are your thoughts on the real origin of vampires? Did you know they went back so far? Let me know in the comments. Were the Anunnaki mythical gods or space aliens? It's one of the oldest debates in history. Forget the chicken and the egg. This is the real age-old question. Were the Anunnaki divine beings worshipped by the Sumerians? Or were they, as some claim, extraterrestrial visitors with a serious case of gold fever and a penchant for genetic tinkering? Listen to this and then let me know what you think. Let's check out the original winged superstars of Mesopotamia. Long before the Greeks were writing soap operas about Zeus and his dramatic love life, long before the Egyptians were carving stories of Osiris into pyramids, the Sumerians of ancient Mesopotamia were worshipping a pantheon of mysterious winged deities known as the Anunnaki. Unlike Zeus, who liked to stay perched atop Mount Olympus, the Anunnaki lived in the uppermost heavens and made occasional pit stops on Earth to dictate human destiny. Talk about micromanaging. These deities weren't just celestial observers. They were hands-on when it came to shaping human affairs. The Sumerians depicted them in fascinating ways. Some had wings, some wore horned hats, and a few even had what looked suspiciously like modern handbags. Seriously, what were they carrying? Celestial car keys? Snack for the road? The secret to immortality? According to mythology, the Anunnaki descended from An, the sky god, and Ki, the earth goddess. The specifics of how many gods there were and what they did tend to get a little hazy, as historical texts vary widely on the details. One of their more famous family squabbles involved Enlil, who decided that heaven and earth needed a breakup. He split them apart, taking Earth for himself, while his father, An, kept the skies. It was a first ever real estate dispute. Down on Earth, Enlil had his hands full with the ancient Sumerians. They were some serious innovators. Their civilization thrived between 4500 and 1750 BC and laid the groundwork for modern society. The Sumerians walked so we could sit around and watch YouTube. They developed one of the earliest writing systems known as cuneiform. They had an advanced understanding of time and even invented the plow. Not to mention their cities, each built around ziggurats. Ziggurats were the original pyramids, huge layered triangles with flat tops dedicated to the Anunnaki. Imagine stepping into a world where entire communities revolved around serving their temple gods. And this went on for thousands of years across many civilizations. Over time, religious rulers were replaced by kings, but the Anunnaki remained central to Sumerian culture. Now, here's where things get interesting. Some modern researchers and fringe theorists, including Michael Cremo, Zechariah Sitchin, Eric von Daniken, and Michael Tellinger, believe the Anunnaki weren't just mythical gods. They were, in fact, extraterrestrials who came to Earth on a mission. It was a mission with repercussions that reverberated across the universe. The Anunnaki were advanced aliens who genetically engineered humans as a slave species to mine gold. Apparently, they needed gold for their home planet. These theorists argue that many ancient texts hint at flying machines and advanced technology that would have been impossible for early civilizations to create alone. Kellinger claimed the Anunnaki introduced humans to the joys of money, finance, and debt. Gee, thanks guys! And they may have also been responsible for constructing mysterious megastructures like the pyramids or even Stonehenge. Mainstream historians and scholars aren't buying what Sitchin and his fellow sci-fi theorists are selling. Critics argue that these ideas stem from mistranslations and misinterpretations of Sumerian texts. Just because an ancient carving looks like a spaceship doesn't mean it is one, or does it? Sitchin took things a step further, claiming that the Anunnaki hailed from a mysterious planet called Nibiru, aka Planet X. This mystery planet orbits the Sun every 10,000 to 20,000 years. NASA, however, has politely labeled this planet as hypothetical. The Anunnaki remain one of history's greatest enigmas, fueling debates between archaeologists, historians, and those who firmly believe that ancient aliens walked among us. Whose side are you on? Let me know your theories in the comments. And now for a quick break, because I want to give a big thank you to Terry Stevens for the super thanks. It really means a lot, and we wouldn't be here without you. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family, because why not? The werewolf of Mesopotamia. Let's go back to ancient Sumer 4,000 years ago to the realm of Mesopotamia. But be sure to bring some silver bullets because we are fighting the original werewolf. More than 1,000 years before the Old Testament, a different kind of book was written. It's considered one of the oldest complete narratives penned by a human. You've undoubtedly heard of it before, the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's an epic poem that contains stories that would later be ripped off by the authors of the Bible. Okay, maybe inspired by is a better term, but the similarities are uncanny. The Epic of Gilgamesh has the original story of Noah and the Great Flood. The book is also filled with tales of gods and kings, and there is one story in particular that I want to tell you about today. It's about a human turning into a werewolf. In the ancient tale, Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is having a romantic moment with the goddess Ishtar when things get a little awkward. Ishtar tries to woo him, but Gilgamesh's response is cold. Gilgamesh, who was like the Hercules of Babylon, was not about to be seduced by the goddess. In fact, he threw shade at her for all her previous failed relationships. The passage goes something like this. You loved the shepherd, the master herder who fed you bread baked in embers and slaughtered a kid daily just for you. Yet you struck him and turned him into a wolf, so his own shepherds chased him, and his own dogs snapped at his shins. Bad things would happen to the men who loved the goddess. It seems Gilgamesh was giving Ishtar a hard time for turning her last boyfriend into a beast. A werewolf beast. No wonder Gilgamesh wasn't down to frolic with someone who turns men into monsters. Assyriologist Julius Oppert said it was standard for the ancient Syrians to think that werewolves were real. There may even be a psychological reason for it. King Nebuchadnezzar II, who ruled Babylon in the 6th century BC and built the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, may have had a disorder called lycanthropy. According to psychiatric experts Harvey Rosenstock and Kenneth R. Vincent, Nebuchadnezzar's downward spiral into madness led him to believe he was literally a wolf for 7 years. It's a story that appears briefly in the Bible. Lycanthropy is a real disorder in which a person believes themselves to be a wolf, and apparently it's been around for at least 2,500 years, maybe even more. Nebuchadnezzar is said to have gone so insane because of his lycanthropy that his empire crumbled while he hobbled around on all fours and howled at the moon. Paul of Aegina, a Greek physician from the 7th century, recorded the first known medical description of lycanthropy as a mental illness. He also linked lycanthropy to an old Greek myth about King Lycaon of Arcadia. In the myth, Lycaon tried to trick Zeus by serving him a meal made of human flesh. Ugh. Zeus was not pleased by being tricked into eating human meat, and as punishment, he turned Lycaon into a wolf. Pliny the Elder, another ancient scholar, wrote about a man from the Antaeus family who turned into a wolf for 9 years. He was only allowed to turn back into a human because he didn't fight anyone during his years as a wolf. And of course, I can't forget Herodotus, the father of history. He mentioned werewolf legends in his masterpiece titled Histories. Herodotus said there was a group of people called Gumuri. They supposedly turned into wolves once a year. By the time the Middle Ages rolled around, werewolves were everywhere. They were being blamed for all kinds of mischief throughout Europe, from sorcery to heresy. Olaus Magnus, a Swedish Catholic in the 16th century, called werewolves an accursed college. Yeah, I don't get it either. I think it was a weird way of calling werewolves rebel wizards, because basically werewolves were seen as evil mages or witches. It was only a matter of time until werewolf legends got tangled up with vampire legends. If you were executed for being a werewolf, sometimes they would burn your body to stop you from rising from the grave as a vampire. Medieval peasants were so obsessed with these folklore monsters they could hardly tell them apart. In Serbia, they combined werewolves and vampires into the frightening Vukodlak. The Arabs had their own werewolf too, called the Kutru. This creature was a mix of a man and a wolf, only worse because it liked to feast on corpses. But in the end, they all spawned from the first ever werewolf story told, Epic Gilgamesh. Almost all Hollywood horrors and monsters of legends can be traced back to Mesopotamia. Would you rather fight a werewolf or a vampire? Let me know. The place where time flows backwards. Breaking news. NASA has discovered a parallel universe. So strap into your time machines and get ready to undo all of your biggest mistakes, starting with not eating that gas station hot dog. If you've been scrolling through the latest headlines, you might have seen that NASA just confirmed a sci-fi first. a parallel universe where time runs backwards. Sounds cool, right? But before we all start drafting time travel conspiracy theories, let's get to the actual science. The news has been a little misleading. The wild headlines floating around in tabloids like the Daily Star and the New York Post are mostly quoting each other in an infinite loop of misinformation. What actually happened is that scientists working in Antarctica detected some strange, high-energy particles that don't fit our current understanding of physics. No one opened a portal to another dimension or cracked time travel. That being said, these new particles might be the first step in opening one such portal. This whole frenzy started with a research balloon experiment called ANITA, which listens for cosmic rays bouncing off the ice. In 2016, ANITA picked up some bizarre signals that seemed to come up from the Earth instead of down from space. That's weird because, in theory, these high-energy particles, neutrinos, shouldn't behave that way. A follow-up research paper suggested a possible explanation for the weird behavior of the neutrinos. They could be the result of a CPT symmetric universe. That's science speak for a hypothetical mirror universe that formed at the Big Bang. In this symmetric universe, everything is reversed, including time. It's trippy, I know. Theoretically, one could enter the symmetric universe, travel backwards in time, and then exit back into the normal universe in the past. Scientists at the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, also in Antarctica, are not on board with the symmetric universe theory. Alex Pizzuto and Anastasia Barbano ruled out the parallel universe idea. Their research instead suggests the odd signals could be due to experimental limitations, interactions with Antarctic ice, or something they just don't understand yet. But where does that leave people like us who want to travel through time? It leaves us with our thumbs out on the side of the road. Anyone have a spare DeLorean we can borrow? Asking for a friend. Who is me? I guess we'll just have to wait a little longer for interdimensional travel. A world ruled by reptiles. Have you ever wondered what would happen if dinosaurs evolved into smart, scaly overlords and took over the world? If so, you're in for a real treat. Buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to get prehistoric with our hypotheticals. 65 million years ago, an asteroid took out the dinosaurs and cleared the way for us hairy mammals to take over. But what if the giant space rock had missed? Would we be sharing Wi-Fi passwords with talking velociraptors? Would Wall Street be run by cold-blooded lizard people? The answer is almost certainly yes. Say hello to President T. Rex Johnson. In 1982, paleontologist Dale Russell took this what-if scenario to the next level. He proposed that if evolution had been given just a smidgen more time, a highly intelligent dinosaur might have evolved into something eerily human-like. That dinosaur would have likely been a Troodon, one of the brainiest dinos that ever lived. The result of this dinosaur evolution would have been a humanoid lizard creature, something possibly called Troodon sapiens. Troodon wasn't your average dinosaur. It had big eyes, an impressive brain-to-body ratio, and maybe even the cognitive chops of a modern-day bird. Try to picture a velociraptor as smart as a parrot. Then give it enough time to evolve even more. Russell imagined that with a few more million years of evolution, these dinos could have developed advanced societies, invented technology, and maybe even debated whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Basically, the dinosaur equivalent of a child prodigy, but with more scales and less awkward piano recitals. To bring this vision of an alternate universe to life, Russell teamed up with sculptor Ron Seguin, who designed a model of this hypothetical dinosaur. Together, they created a monster with an upright stance, large eyes, no tail, no teeth, and 3 fingers on each hand for scrolling through Instagram and holding tools. Wait, no teeth? That's not even the weirdest part. Russell and Ron gave their creation a belly button, suggesting their hypothetical dinosaur Lex Luthor evolved to be viviparous and birth live young. Now here's a crazy idea. What if this did happen? You know those reptilian overlords people say are secretly running the world? What if they are the real dinosaur that Russell tried to warn us about? Oregon's weird meteorite mystery. A lost treasure, cries of a hoax, and one big space rock caught in the middle. This is the story of a 10-ton meteorite found in the Oregon wilderness, and the man who nobody believed was telling the truth. The man, the myth, and the meteorite. In the 1850s, the U.S. Department of the Interior sent John Evans, a New Hampshire doctor turned geologist, on a survey mission in Oregon. Now, Evans wasn't exactly a seasoned rock expert. His background was in medicine, but that didn't stop him from making what would become one of the most mysterious claims in American geological history. While exploring southwestern Oregon, Evans said he found a giant meteorite near Bald Mountain, about 40 miles from Port Orford. According to his field reports, the object was so big that it would have cost $3,000 to transport it down the mountain. That was a boatload of money back then. Instead of hauling it back, Evans broke off a piece and sent it for analysis. Word of the discovery spread fast. The Port Orford meteorite was hailed as a monumental find, with some newspapers claiming it was the largest space rock ever found in the US. Naturally, this kicked off a gold rush-style meteorite hunt. Imagine the chaos. People tripping over each other, armed with pickaxes and dreams of cosmic riches. It didn't take long until Evans had some seriously peeved prospectors on his hands. Despite multiple expeditions, some of them even guided by Evans himself, no one could find the meteorite. His field journal provided no maps, no landmarks, no coordinates. All Evans offered were vague descriptions of the area. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack, only this needle weighed 10 tons and should have been dang easy to spot. Then Evans died in 1861, taking any real knowledge of the meteorite's location with him. But the search didn't stop there. In the 1920s, the Smithsonian Institution retraced Evans' steps, hoping to finally locate the legendary space rock. Leading the search was Edward Henderson, curator of meteorites, who spent decades chasing the mystery. Nobody ever found anything. By 1964, after years of failure, Henderson finally declared the Port Orford meteorite a hoax. After all that, even today, people scour the forests of southern Oregon hoping to find the legendary meteorite. Some believe it's buried beneath a landslide. Others think it was never there in the first place. If Evans lied, what was the point? In the 1990s, things got spooky. Historian Howard Plotkin decided to take one last crack at solving the case. Howard teamed up with metallurgists Van Butchwald and Roy Clark from the Smithsonian. Together, they analyzed the original meteorite sample that Evans had submitted. What they found was amazing. The sample didn't come from Oregon at all. It matched the composition of a meteorite field in Chile's Atacama Desert, discovered in the 1820s. Evans submitted a piece of Chilean space rock. But why? Come on, Evan, what were you thinking? The general assumption today is that Evans was broke. He may have purchased the meteorite sample while traveling through Panama in 1858, where space rocks were often sold as souvenirs. Then he made up the story to try and get rich. What a weird hoax to come up with. Don't go anywhere, because next up we'll be exploring the healing powers of a mysterious European pyramid. This pyramid can heal you. Do you need a magical cure for all your pain and problems? I may have a solution for you. When you think of pyramids, your mind probably jumps to Egypt, right? But hold on to your energy crystals, because Bosnia has its own set of pyramids, possibly the oldest on Earth. And they're not just sitting there looking majestic. They might be buzzing with electromagnetic energy and healing powers. The most famous of these rumored structures is the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. Some think it's nothing but an ordinary mountain with trees on it, but some experts think it's a pyramid that nature has taken over. According to studies by Dr. Harry Oldfield, the so-called pyramid's electromagnetic fields behave in a way that has left scientists scratching their heads. Normally, electromagnetic fields over natural hills and mountains are horizontally oriented, but not here. The fields over the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun shoot up vertically, as if the structure itself is beaming energy straight into the sky. Dr. Slobodan Mizrak, a Croatian physicist, measured a peculiar ultrasonic frequency of 28 kilohertz emerging from the top of the pyramid. This aligns with Dr. Oldfield's findings and suggests that something deep beneath the pyramid is generating this energy beam. It's about 7,000 feet below the surface. What's down there? A power plant? An ancient Wi-Fi router? Scientists don't know, but desperately want to find out. If you thought an energy beam wasn't enough, Croatian scientists also detected a light beam coming from the top of the pyramid. Actual light. This phenomenon has been recorded before, most notably at El Castillo in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Coincidence or evidence of an ancient global network of high-tech pyramids? For years, people visiting the Bosnian pyramids have claimed to experience healing effects, and science might back that up. Researchers have detected an abnormally high concentration of negative ions in the underground tunnels near the pyramids. Negative ions are known to clean the air of pollutants and have been linked to various health benefits, including improved mood and respiratory function. Forget spa retreats, just book a trip to Bosnia and take a deep breath. Okay, but how old exactly is the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun? Older than the Anunnaki, if carbon dating is to be believed. In 2012, Italian archaeologists Dr. Riccardo Brett and Niccolo Visconti found organic material in the blocks of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. Carbon-14 dating placed the structure's age at least 24,000 years old. That means this pyramid existed long before the wheel, agriculture, or even written history. Could this be proof of an ancient civilization with advanced knowledge? Or are these natural formations playing tricks on our scientific instruments? The chariot wheel and the biblical Exodus. For decades, a claim has been floating around that actual chariot wheels have been discovered at the bottom of the Red Sea, proving the biblical account of Exodus. It's time to find out how real these claims are. The story of Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt is one of the most famous events in religious history. According to the Bible, Moses stretched out his hand, the sea parted, and the Israelites walked across on dry land. Then the Pharaoh's army got absolutely wrecked when the waters came crashing down. I introduce you now to Ron Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist and Bible explorer. In 1978, Ron was flying over the Gulf of Aqaba, the Red Sea, when he spotted Nuweiba Beach in Egypt. Something clicked in his head. He thought the area looked exactly like the place where the Israelites would have been trapped before crossing the Red Sea. Wyatt made his way to the beach and, after some investigating, stumbled upon something intriguing. He said he found a stone monument on the Egyptian side of the Red Sea and an identical one on the other side. Some believe King Solomon erected these mysterious stones as a memorial to the Exodus. Wyatt and his team allegedly found gold-plated chariot wheels, axles, and even human and horse bones scattered across the sea floor. According to him, coral had covered the chariots over time, preserving their shape like an underwater time capsule. If true, this would be one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries in history. But that's a big if. While Wyatt's claims are exciting, they have been met with significant skepticism from professional archaeologists and historians. There is no verified scientific documentation. No major academic institutions or archaeological bodies have confirmed his chariot wheel discoveries. All we have to go on is his word. Is that enough for you? Doodling with dinosaurs. A prehistoric cold case has just been reopened. The evidence? Dinosaur footprints. And some seriously intriguing ancient artwork. The scene of the crime? Brazil. There is a mystery unfolding that has scientists ready to faint. Researchers recently uncovered an incredible site in Brazil's Serrote do Letreiro, where prehistoric humans decided to jazz up the landscape with rock art placed suspiciously close to dinosaur footprints. 9,400 years ago, a prehistoric culture became obsessed with monster footprints from 145 million to 66 million years ago. Honestly, can you blame them? I mean, we're still obsessed. They drew petroglyphs of circles, lines, and other geometric shapes all around the imprints left by a variety of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs like theropods or meat lovers, sauropods, long-necked herbivores, and ornithopods, the dino versions of today's emus. Leonardo Troiano, an archaeologist from Brazil's National Institute of Historic and Artistic Heritage, led a recent study on the prints. He and his team suspect that these ancient artists didn't just stumble upon dino prints and start doodling for fun. The placements were intentional. But what were prehistoric people thinking when they made this artwork around the fossilized dinosaur prints? Let me know your guesses in the comments. The first European vampire. The chilling tale of the first European bloodsucker is going to leave you chilled to your core. The case of Peter Plagojevich is one of the best documented incidents of vampire hysteria ever recorded. It has everything you could ever want in a vampire story: mysterious deaths, blood-drained victims, and a very hangry undead farmer. The story takes place in 1725 in the little village of Kisiljevo, Serbia, where a farmer named Peter did what farmers do best. He worked hard, lived his life, and then died. That was the short and sweet of it in the 1700s. Peasant life was kind of a huge bummer. Peter did something he wasn't supposed to, though. He didn't stay dead. Just 3 days after his burial, Peter strolled right back into town like he had unfinished business. He showed up like he wasn't dead the day before and went straight to his son's house. Do you know what he asked for when he banged on the door? Not blood, but food. Peter was starving, and his awestruck son wasn't about to deny his resurrected pa a bowl of peasant stew. Shaken, Peter's son gave his dad some food and then told him to beat it. "Get out of here, you zombie." Superstition ran wild in rural Serbia, and no one came back from the dead without some nefarious thing tied to them. When Peter came back the next night, still hungry, his son put his foot down. No more midnight snacks for the undead. Sorry, wrong move. The next morning, Peter's son was found dead, but the horror had only just begun. Over the next few days, 9 more villagers mysteriously dropped dead. Each one complained of exhaustion before their deaths and appeared to have lost a concerning amount of blood. And just to crank up the creep factor, they all reported having nightmares about Peter visiting them. The Peter who was supposed to be in the afterlife. Fearing an apocalyptic vampire takeover, the parish priest wrote to the local magistrate, who wasted no time alerting a nearby commander of imperial troops. Soon, a team of officers and an executioner arrived to get to the bottom of this undead nightmare. The vampire hunt was on. With torches in hand and probably a lot of nervous side-eyes, the investigators dug up the bodies of all 10 recent victims, including Peter. And holy smokes, they did not like what they found. Peter's body was freakishly well preserved. His skin was fresh, his nails had grown into claws, and his mouth was covered in blood. How much more proof do you need that Peter was a vampire? In modern times, scientists would accept Peter's strange condition as part of the natural decomposition process. But in 1725, yeah, right. Peter's ghoulish body was seen as obvious proof of vampirism. What do you suppose the next logical step was? I'll give you a hint. It involved a stake through the heart. The executioner did what any self-respecting vampire hunter would do. He drove a wooden stake straight through Peter's dead chest. And because this story wasn't dramatic enough already, blood and liquid gushed out everywhere. To be extra sure that Peter didn't rise for a second encore, they burned his body to ash. Then they reburied the rest of the victims, but not before stuffing their graves with garlic and whitethorn to stop them from turning into a vampire like Peter. And just like that, Peter's reign of terror was over. But was Peter really to blame for an undead rampage? Or was this a classic case of mass hysteria brought on by a sudden spread of disease? Maybe keep a little garlic in your house, just in case. The Anunnaki buried for 12,000 years. In 2008, the Islamic Republic News Agency released photos of a mummy. But this was no ordinary mummy. This mummy could change history. Road workers stumbled upon a graveyard dating back to the Iron Age. The Cultural Heritage Department in Sanandaj excavated about 20 graves. Pretty standard stuff. When they came across something so bizarre, it's hard to believe. The report is that they accidentally discovered a tomb, but this was no ordinary tomb. Inside was the perfectly preserved body of an Anunnaki king. The images and even video clips of the alleged Anunnaki are a little hard to find, but we did. The mummy looks like a man who is extremely well preserved. He looks human, though his skin, maybe because he's been dead for so long, is a blackish blue color. He was found wearing a silver crown adorned with jewelry and lying next to a jeweled box. He was found in the cemetery dating back to the 8th century BC, though some reports claim this body to be as much as 12,000 years old. But what happened next is a mystery. There is very little information about this discovery, which makes most researchers think that this discovery never happened at all. The whole thing is a hoax. Others believe it is finally the proof they have been waiting for, showing us where we come from. The secrets hidden in this ancient grave with this ancient mythical king will finally tell us who we are. The global powers are hiding it from us to conceal the truth. There are two very different theories about who the Anunnaki were to the ancient Mesopotamians. Some scholars think the Anunnaki were gods worshipped in ancient Sumer. The Anunnaki were the Sumerian pantheon of gods, like the Greek gods, and part of their mythology was that they descended from the heavens to live on Earth. The more sci-fi version is that they were alien invaders who traveled to Earth from the planet Nibiru. The truth might be somewhere in the middle. For the Sumerians, they revered the Anunnaki. They believed them to be heavenly beings who controlled the destiny of their civilization. Although it's unclear when the Anunnaki gods were first worshipped, it was most likely around 4,500 BC. The Sumerians believed that the gods gave them the knowledge to invent agriculture, science, and to expand their civilization. They thought the Anunnaki were descendants of a supreme being called An, who was so powerful he could control the fates of the other gods as well. But were these beings really from the stars? It was only recently that people started talking about planet Nibiru, calling the Anunnaki aliens, and supporting the idea that humans were genetically engineered by the Anunnaki to be their slaves to mine their gold. This mysterious discovery of the ancient king has brought up more questions than answers. Did this discovery actually happen? Was the body discovered in a tomb in Iraq the incorruptible corpse of one of these cosmic invaders? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The Secret Nazi Witch Library, Part 1. I know that you know the Nazis were obsessed with power, but what if I told you they were obsessed with a different kind of power? Magical power. In 2016, the world was stunned by the discovery of a 13,000-strong collection of witchcraft, paganism, and black magic books, meticulously assembled by none other than Heinrich Himmler and his Nazi SS. Hidden in plain sight, these dark tomes represent a chilling chapter in history. This discovery caught the attention of the world. A library of esoteric knowledge of this scale is hard to imagine. It isn't something that turns up often, especially not hiding inside the National Library of a major European nation. Here's what the report said in 2016. The National Library in Prague had been used by Himmler to stockpile suspicious texts. Soldiers of Nazi Germany gathered every grimoire, spellbook, ritual text, invocation scroll, everything even remotely magical, and stashed it in Prague. Then it was forgotten. In the chaos that unfolded after World War II, everyone forgot the library was there. The dark scrolls and demonic lexicons were buried under thousands of other books in the library. The details surrounding Himmler's hunt for magical texts are well documented. In 1935, before the war even started, he established a special unit known as the H Sonderkommando. The H allegedly stood for Hex, which is the German word for witch. This special unit was part of the overarching plan the Nazis had to learn all they could about the occult. The Nazis were convinced that if they could only figure out the forgotten secrets of the ancients, they would have a better chance of winning the war. They wanted to find artifacts of power and learn the truths of human civilization. The Nazis were convinced that magic was the answer. The SS troops pillaged more than 260 libraries across Europe, accumulating a massive collection of books that was quickly dubbed the Witch Library. 6,000 out of the 13,000 total books were reportedly confiscated from the Norwegian Order of Freemasons in Oslo. Freemasons had been gathering their own collection of occult grimoires for years, so the Nazis happily helped themselves to it. Things haven't even started to get weird yet, so keep watching to learn about the dark depths of Nazi occultism. But now for a quick break because it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Mary Rodman and Don Quixote for supporting this channel. Love you guys! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. This culture was older and more advanced than the Sumerians. After 5,000 years, archaeologists in Ukraine climbed into a cave and found some very strange artifacts, proof of forgotten ceremonies and rituals that have been lost to time. Researchers at the Borshivsky Local History Museum in Ukraine descended on Verteba Cave with chisels and brushes, ready to excavate. This cave is amazing because it's been home to human ancestors for the last 50,000 years. Its walls have been used as a giant art canvas for the same amount of time. People have hidden in the cave from violence, and they've lived in it as shelter from the elements. Now archaeologists have found what they believe to be shrines, shadowed places of worship where members of the enigmatic Trypillian culture gave praise to strange entities. Little is known about the Trypillian culture, also called the Cucuteni Trypillia culture, other than that they were highly developed Neolithic humans. They made their mark on the world starting 7,500 years ago, fading away a little more than 2,000 years later. They lived across Southeast Europe in Moldova, Ukraine, and Romania. Here are a few highlights of their civilization you don't want to miss. They invented the potter's wheel earlier than the Mesopotamians. They designed public baths before the Romans. They also built the largest settlements in Europe during the Stone Age. Their towns were big, maybe even bigger than the town you live in right now. When they really started to hit their stride, the Trypillian culture had megacities where up to 46,000 people lived. These were huge when compared to everywhere else in the ancient world. Some archaeologists believe this European culture was more advanced than any other on the planet. Their megacities may have been bigger than the cities of the Mesopotamians, who had supposedly been taught all they knew from the Anunnaki. Only if archaeological dating is correct, the Trypillian culture knew more than the Mesopotamians, and they knew it first. You can see by now why the Trypillian culture is such a big mystery. But things get even weirder. That might have to become my catchphrase if I say it any more often. The strangest aspect of the culture was that they periodically destroyed their own cities on purpose. Their cities weren't designed to live forever. They had an average lifespan of about 60 to 80 years. After a generation, the whole city was burned to the ground and reconstructed, either in a new place or on top of the scorched remains. It would be like if once a century someone burned down New York City, all the houses in it, and then everyone built the city back up from scratch. Scientists have never been able to figure out why the culture practiced such unnecessary destruction. At the megacity of Huduri in Romania, archaeologists identified 13 levels of construction on top of each other. The city was burned down and rebuilt 13 times, and not due to war or violence. They did it seemingly for fun. Let's get back to the Ukrainian cave. Like I already said, little is known about the culture itself. Nobody knows what they believed in, what their traditions were, or the names of their gods. But in this dark cave, archaeologists have found some hints. The Ukrainian team uncovered a collection of female figurines. The clay figurines were placed inside a large clay storage jar, with the jar tucked into a niche of a cave wall. The niche was so small that you could only fit your hand into it. The female figurines were protected by the severed tusks of a wild boar. Experts who know a thing or two about rituals are convinced this is evidence of a Trypillian ritual. It could have had something to do with agriculture or animal husbandry. The boar may have been their god. It's easy to guess, but scientists don't really know the answers. What are your thoughts? Amelia Earhart finally found. A mystery from the past 87 years may have just been solved. A group of explorers believe they have found the long-lost airplane of Amelia Earhart at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. This is huge news, gigantic news. People have been trying to figure out what happened to Amelia Earhart since she went missing in 1937. Tony Romeo, the CEO of Deep Sea Vision, called her America's favorite missing person. Tony is the man behind the discovery. He and his team used all the technology at their disposal to track her down. They haven't seen the plane itself, only a bright yellow smudge on a sonar that looks suspiciously like an airplane. To find Amelia, the team started by examining her flight path, her altitude, and flying conditions on the day that she disappeared. They looked at the 6 different radio calls Amelia had made during her flight. They put all these clues together and started scanning the ocean. Amelia Earhart was one of the greatest American heroes of the 20th century. Amelia was a fantastic pilot before she disappeared. She broke records everywhere she went. One of her greatest accomplishments was becoming the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932. In 1937, she embarked upon a journey most of us could only ever dream of. She was going to circumnavigate the world, but it didn't turn out the way Amelia had planned. During her flight from Papua New Guinea to Howland Island in the Central Pacific, she vanished along with Fred Noonan. Amelia Earhart, her navigator Fred Noonan, and the Lockheed Electra they were flying had been missing for almost 100 years. Throughout the past few decades, conspiracy theories have gone wild trying to find an explanation. One of the wildest theories you may have heard is that Amelia was eaten by crabs. Some people have suggested Amelia crashed on a deserted island, sustaining terrible injuries. The island was swarmed by coconut crabs who ate either Amelia alive or pillaged her remains and dragged her bones into the sea. Either way, what a terrible way for someone to go. Others think she may have been kidnapped by aliens, along with Fred Noonan. That would hopefully be less awful than becoming a feast for crustaceans. But some suspect she was captured by Japanese military forces and eliminated. Others think she faked her own disappearance to start a new life under a new identity. It's now looking like the worst-case scenario might be true. Amelia crashed into the ocean and died when she ran out of gas. The team with deep-sea vision spent 3 months combing the ocean floor using the most advanced submersible craft they could get their hands on. After much hard work, the craft captured the bright yellow fuzz of an airplane shape on its sonar. The fuzz is located more than 15,000 feet beneath the surface. That's deeper than anyone is going to dive. It might be too deep to ever recover. To put it in comparison, the wreckage of the Titanic is 12,500 feet deep. Tony Romeo said the airplane-shaped blob is similar in size and shape to the Lockheed Electra Amelia went down in. Tony even pointed out the vertical stabilizers at the back, which he claims you can see in the sonar image. But not everyone is convinced. Aviation expert Dorothy Cochrane said the mystery is not solved yet. Dorothy said Amelia's fate isn't and won't be confirmed until somebody identifies the object with 100% certainty, not just with assumptions and sonar images. The Secret Nazi Witch Library, Part 2. Getting back to the Nazis and the discovery of their witch library, just how demented was the Nazi leadership? It's believed that Heinrich Himmler was a follower of the witch cult hypothesis, which was dreamed up by Margaret Murray. The hypothesis states that the power of the ancient occult masters and early Christians would help the Nazis rule the world. The witch cult hypothesis also claims that during the Inquisition that spread across the globe, snuffing out the flame of heresy was a falsehood. The Inquisition was launched by the Catholic Church to repress one specific indigenous German pagan religion named Volkisch. The church also wanted to get rid of everyone who knew about the old ways, to banish magic and to prevent the so-called Aryan race from ever dominating the globe again. Researcher and author George Luck said the cult Himmler followed worshipped the forgotten horned god of the Celts and Greco-Romans named Faunus. It was a goat-like beast that may have partly been the inspiration behind the devil. Not all researchers feel the same way about Heinrich Himmler and the Nazis. There are a lot of experts who think all the stuff about mysticism and magic is bogus. Heather Green said most modern historians have debunked the theories of Nazi obsession with the supernatural. Heather said it's because of Indiana Jones and Dan Brown books that the Third Reich has become entrenched in rumors of witchcraft and occultism. But what about Nazi Week on the History Channel? Remember those days? It was always Hitler and the occult. Regardless of what you might believe, there's no denying that the Nazis looted cultural property across Europe. Take a look at this image. It shows an American soldier in 1945 standing amidst a mountain of ancient texts stolen by the Nazis. The picture was taken at Schloss Kirche Ellingen. It's real proof that the Nazis were gathering documents and manuscripts for themselves. There's no denying it. The motivation behind this quest for ancient texts is a little more difficult to prove. Some historians believe the Nazis were acquiring all of these writings not because they believed in them, but because the Nazis thought the books might be dangerous. They banned anything that questioned Nazi beliefs, including Jewish and Freemason texts. The books that were discovered in Prague are real. However, it's been impossible to confirm why the Nazis stockpiled them. The books were found by researchers tasked with figuring out where the roughly 13,000 volumes were taken from and creating a digital catalog for the public. If you want to see what kinds of esoteric books were stolen by the Nazis, be sure to check out the Books Discovered Once Again project. Is this really an alien artifact? Decades after it was found, scientists are still trying to understand the intricacies of an alien sphere. It's an object that defies explanation and logic at every turn, astounding the experts and freaking out everyone else. Maybe you can help me understand the mystery of the Bet sphere discovered in 1974. We all want to know what it is and why it's on this planet. I'll tell you the story and you give me your opinions in the comments. Terry Matthew Betts was a medical student in 1974 when a fire ravaged the forest near his home in Jacksonville. When the fire was under control and Terry went to investigate the damage, he found a very unusual orb lying in the burned debris. It wasn't very big, the perfect sphere small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. On its surface was a triangle, but it had no other identifying marks. Terry took the orb home to his family, who said it seemed normal. The spherical piece of metal was obviously from a satellite or some piece of military equipment. There was nothing to stress out about. Then strange things started to happen, and suddenly there was something to stress about. The metallic sphere reportedly reacted to certain musical notes. The Betts family dog acted unusually around it. When they placed the sphere on the floor, it would move around on its own, as if it were being controlled remotely. The family thought it was strange enough that they contacted the Jacksonville Journal, who sent photographer Lou Egner to investigate. Sure enough, what the family said was true. The orb was moving around on its own. It also seemed to be emitting a really unusual sound from inside, like there was something in there scratching at the walls, or like it was a tiny music box. Then NASA got involved. NASA doesn't just get involved in random events. Then, so did the United States Navy. Someone high up in the food chain wanted to know what the sphere was. The story goes the Betts family sent the sphere to the Navy, who immediately recognized there was something odd going on. They tried to x-ray it, but their attempts failed. They couldn't even tell what the orb was made out of. They put the artifact through a gauntlet of tests. These tests revealed that the orb was incredibly powerful. It could withstand pressure up to 120,000 pounds per square inch. They also managed to analyze its composition after a while, and the orb was made of stainless steel. To be more specific, stainless steel alloy number 431. The specifics here are important because 431 is a machinable type of steel with added nickel for increased toughness. In other words, it's not something you typically find in nature. The alloy specifically improves corrosion resistance, making it an excellent metal for building deep-sea vessels or aircraft. Pretty spooky, right? The Betts sphere was made of a similar material to something you would want to make a spaceship out of. Then Dr. James Albert Harder from the University of California at Berkeley studied the orb and made some even bigger bombshell revelations. Dr. Harder claimed that inside the orb were two smaller orbs made from elements heavier than anything known to human scientists. The heaviest element ever produced in an atomic reactor has an atomic number of 105. The heaviest element that occurs naturally on this planet is uranium, with an atomic number of only 92. According to Dr. Harder, the material within the Betts sphere has an atomic number higher than 140. Dr. Harder suggested that if someone drilled into the sphere, it might detonate with the force of an atomic bomb. Nobody knows what happened to the orb or where it is today. In 2012, Skeptoid published a report claiming the Betts sphere was a ball from a check valve that likely just fell off a truck in Jacksonville. Don't forget to tell me your theories in the comments. Anti-gravity technology? Potential anti-gravity technology has been discovered in Russia. Researchers have found evidence of ancient megaliths 2 or 3 times larger than the biggest known megaliths in the world today. The scale of these blocks is unbelievable. Really unbelievable. You might even think I'm making it up. If you were to ask a mainstream scholar what the most impressive cut blocks on the planet are, they would most likely say the megalithic stones of Baalbek, and they would mostly be right. I've discussed Baalbek previously on the channel. Baalbek was a Phoenician temple dedicated to the god Baal in the City of the Sun, aka Heliopolis. Archaeologists think the city began as a Roman colony around 2,000 years ago. Others have suggested the stonework dates much further back in history, possibly 12,000 years. Only a few columns remain standing from the original temple. The heaviest of all the blocks in the area is 1,650 tons. It's 64 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 18 feet high. It's also considered the largest stone ever quarried. The megalithic stones identified in Russia have been estimated at 4,000 tons. That's more than twice as heavy as the biggest quarried stone ever found. I told you it was unbelievable, didn't I? The place in Russia is called Gornaya Shorya, tucked away in the Siberian mountains far from human civilization. It's a place where compasses supposedly malfunction. Those who have gone in search of the megaliths have claimed their instruments mysteriously pointed them away from the site, as if trying to protect it. Mainstream scientists are not convinced that Gornaya Shorya is legit. They think it's just a rock, but this is one fancy-looking rock. The blocks of stone here have incredibly flat surfaces, flat as pancakes. They have perfect right angles, sharp corners, and all the telltale signs of being molded by human tools. The first time Gornaya Shorya was even photographed was in 2013, thanks to explorer Georgy Sidorov, hardly more than a decade ago. With such little time to investigate, it's not surprising that archaeologists remain at a loss. They don't have a clue as to the origin, purpose, or construction methods of Gornaya Shorya. The 4,000-ton stones have been stacked up almost 120 feet high in some places. There are towers of stones. This masonry is so clearly ancient that to try and guess who made them is going to be almost impossible. Giants discovered in France. Apparently, giants once dominated France. Men and women who stood twice as tall as modern humans lived thousands of years ago, and mainstream scientists do not like to talk about it. Most of the evidence has seemingly been destroyed. Nothing remains of the giant conspiracy. If conspiracy it is, except for a handful of newspaper clippings from around the globe. I've talked a lot about giants in North America and the various tales told by Native American groups. For example, the Ka, who were red-haired giant cannibals. The Northern Paiute claimed to have fought a war against the giants. The Paiute either destroyed them completely or drove them from the region of what is now Nevada. I've also talked a lot about the newspaper articles detailing giant corpses more than 8 feet tall being found in places like Kentucky, and of course at Lovelock Cave in Nevada, where the Ka were supposedly killed. But I haven't talked much about French giants. In 1889, the London newspaper Pall Mall Gazette published an article that went down in history. They claimed that a peasant living in the small French village of Coutesson came across the remnants of a lost species. The peasant was digging a hole in his field when the ground gave way beneath his feet. He plummeted into a pit about 10 feet deep. It wasn't a sinkhole, but rather a subterranean chamber. It was basically a cave. Its floor littered with partially petrified human bones. In an adjoining chamber were huge human bones that had been organized into some kind of cultic circle. It looked like the kind of place you would expect Satanists to summon the devil. The bones were so enormous that eyewitnesses guessed they must have belonged to people who stood at least 11 feet tall. It was such an amazing discovery that news of it spread across Europe. In France, everyone was talking about the human bones of amazingly large size. I'd say that's a pretty good description. A few months later, in 1890, the London Globe published another article saying that a different set of huge human bones were found at a prehistoric cemetery in Castelnau, which is in the south of France. Again, the bones belonged to someone who stood 11 feet tall. Again, the remains were found in a cave. Another discovery came in 1894. This time, a group of workers excavating a reservoir in Montpellier found human skulls that dwarfed their own skulls. They were the heads of giants and were supposedly sent off to the Paris Academy for inspection. Newspapers reported the discovery of giants more than 12 feet tall this time. Then the buzz died down and there's been radio silence ever since. Many believe that after the initial surge of giant discoveries, someone with a lot of power got rid of the evidence and suppressed new discoveries. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Opening the tomb of Cerberus. Scientists in Italy have just opened a huge sarcophagus from one of the most mysterious tombs ever. What they found shocked them. You might remember several months ago I told you about the discovery of the tomb of Cerberus in Naples. It was a very exciting find, with incredibly vivid images on its walls, painted pictures of the three-headed monster guardian of the underworld named Cerberus. Since it was discovered, archaeologists have been hard at work trying to learn all they can about the tomb, its contents, and who was buried inside of it. There were 2 sarcophagi in the tomb, each sealed for 2,000 years. Scientists first tried a non-invasive technique using a micro camera to investigate inside one of the sarcophagi. Now they've gone the invasive route. They've opened the stone lid to reveal a partially mummified body wrapped in a fabric burial shroud. Scientists are currently analyzing the body and the shroud to try and learn more. They've already found trace remnants of goosefoot and absinthe, which may have been used to preserve the body. They are trying to figure out what type of fabric the shroud was made of and are still awaiting DNA results for the deceased. The body was apparently found in excellent condition, though scientists haven't released any images yet. So I'll have to figure out what to show you here. The secrets of the tomb of Cerberus are still unraveling, and I'll be updating you each time something new is made public.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon. Bye!